Hello and welcome back to the Raspberry Podcast. Firstly, Happy New Year to everyone. It's the first episode of 2022. I hope everyone's doing well and I have a great episode for you today. Today I am joined by Adisa Banjoko, aka The Bishop. Adisa is an author, an educator, and a journalist, primarily in the field of hip-hop and chess. He's also a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. So I first connected with Adisa when I announced that I wanted to do this chess grappling event. He, obviously being big into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and chess, was really excited by that, got in contact with me, told me that he's been thinking about doing this. He's even written some literature about how to possibly do it. So when I heard that he was over in the UK from the States, traveling around and teaching some seminars over here, I really wanted to connect with him and sit down and do this podcast. Really enjoyed it. You know, we talk about all three of these main things that he does, how he got into hip hop, his journey in hip hop, chess, and in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as well. And he just has some awesome stories and has been privileged enough to cross paths with a lot of amazing people. So really enjoyed chatting to Adisa, and I hope you guys enjoy listening. Check it out. Dude, thank you very much for coming on.
I'm so hyped right now, dude. Thank you for coming through, man, because I know it was not an easy journey. So.
I mean, yeah, well, you, like I was saying earlier, you've got the truest British weather today. Not the best driving weather, but you know what? I've been so excited. We first connected when I sort of put out this idea that I'm going to do this chess grappling thing, which is funny because I think it was the last episode of the podcast was with Andy Costello, where we spoke about chess boxing, and then I said to him, "Oh man, this sounds pretty simple. We can do some chess grappling on this." And then I put that out there, and this is like the sequel to that episode a little bit. But I want to talk more about chess grappling in a little bit.
Sure.
What I do with most people when I have them on is because they're martial artists, I'll go, "So, tell me about your martial arts career." And it starts with, when I was 7 years old, I watched a Bruce Lee film, and then I went and started training karate. With you, it's different because, and it's something that I find very interesting, something that interests me a lot, is when people combine different, like the combination of anything. I think the sort of the synergistic nature of different disciplines and the connection between them. And, you know, when referring again to chess grappling, you know, this idea that there's a connection between martial arts, grappling, and chess. And you know, for me, it's the combination of strength training and grappling and stuff like that. And then we connected, and I followed and started listening to your podcast and seeing some of the other stuff that you've done. And you have this first. It's these three main things that it seems like, or maybe four, with the philosophy and stuff. But I want to talk about that again, like later. That seemed like it came later.
It did.
But it's this combination of chess, grappling, and hip hop.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, the best combinations are the ones that you don't expect for them to make sense, but they do.
Yeah, it's spooky, right? Like at first you're like, it sounds like it makes, the wormhole. Right?
Yeah. So, instead of me going, when did you first start jiu-jitsu? I'm going to go, I'm assuming hip-hop came first.
Hip-hop did come first,
So sure. Tell me about hip-hop, because when someone hears, what do you mean hip-hop? When we talk about hip-hop, they think it's just music, but obviously the culture and everything is much deeper than that. So kind of just tell me how you got into that.
So in order to do this, first, everyone needs to know that I'm 51, old, all right? So I was around, not like at the beginning of hip hop, because I was a kid. Like, 73 is when hip hop really started kind of getting its baby legs and making its way in the world. So by 83, I'm about to be 13. I go to my cousin Steve's house, and, I was ridiculous. I look like this all the time, very like Urkel, super skinny, not athletic. And he's trying to be like Apollo Creed. So he's got a weight bench, whatever. So I would go to his house and spend the night on the weekends or whatever. And so he had a boombox. And so on this particular day, he's playing this music. Now, I didn't know it was hip hop, but that's what it was. And I don't even think he called it hip hop at that time. I don't know. But like, it was a mixtape. And I remember sitting on his mom's washing machine watching him lift weights. And I was like, what is this? He was like, "Oh, this is a mixtape from my friend Jesse Carr." I was like, I need to copy this. Like I knew, like I was different that day. I was like, boom, this is nothing like, because it's hard at this point in human history to understand what it's like to hear something that's never been done before. Hip hop was totally new. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to listen to the hip hop was completely new.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, yo, what is this? So then he let me dub it. And I was like, I've got to do this. Like I have to be involved. I don't know what, but I have to do it. So my father knew a lot about electronics. So my birthday was coming up. And he was like, what do you want for your birthday? I was like, I need a mixer, and I need a turntable, and a reverb. And he was like, well, I get you a mixer. I can get you this really big mixer or a reverb, but you know what I mean? Like you got to choose. So I chose for a low grade mixer and a reverb. And so, ironically, because my dad understood electronics, like he actually showed me how to scratch. It was weird. My dad was into stuff. So he's like, yeah, if you use the fader and you go, I was like, yo. So then I got on, so then I'm, right? So I'm scratching and stuff. And my classmate, his name was Mark Spurlock. And Mark was this white kid. I grew up in the burbs, as you can tell by the way I speak. But Mark lived in the burbs that had more black people than where I was from. And so he knew where all the record stores were. He knew everything. So, in these days, Dr. Dre was in a group called the Wrecking Crew, the World Class Wrecking Crew. And they had a song called Surgery. At that time, the scratch that he did on that song was immaculate. It would be like Eddie Van Halen's finest moment, like as far as turntable people go. So I went over to Mark's one day and we were playing Surgery. And I said, man, isn't Dr. Dre amazing? And you got to say, he's not a star at this time. He's just the guy who put out a record. And Mark was like, I can do that scratch. And I was like, have a seat. He was like, no, I'm serious. He turns the record over to the instrumental and he does it. He replicates it exactly. And I was like, sensei. You know what I'm saying? Like, teach me.
Yeah.
And so I became just like a maniacal nerd about hip hop. And so fast forward to 87, I'm a junior in high school. I'm a low grade functional alcoholic and I'm failing everything. And so my counselor, Mr. King, he comes to me and he calls me in his office and he's like, hey, are you interested in going to college at all? And I'm like, of course. I'm lying. I have no plan. And he's like, well, what college do you want to go to? And I was like, I'd like to graduate from Hillman. And he falls out laughing in his chair. And I'm confused because Hillman is this college on this TV show called A Different World. But it doesn't really exist. It's a TV show. And I didn't know that. So I was just trying to get through the question.
Yeah.
And he's like, get out of my office. And I was like, what? He goes, it's not even a real school. Get out. So I was like, all right. So then like a few days later, he calls me back in and he's like, so I was looking at your grades and you're failing everything but English. I was like, interesting. And he was like, so I would like to have you start writing for the newspaper because it's the only thing you have an A in. Our school was known for wrestling, like known for wrestling. I went to Oceana High School, known for wrestling. Shout out to Coach Gray. I think he passed away though. And football, which he also coached, and swimming. That's what we were known for. We were 2 blocks from the beach. This was a stereotypical Californian, high school. 2 blocks from the beach, you know what I'm saying, all that. And so he's like, you got to write. I was like, well, I don't want to write about wrestling. I don't care about football. And I absolutely don't care about swimming. And he was like, well, what do you want to write about? I was like, I want to write about hip hop. He's like, fine. You're writing about hip hop. Get out of my office. Please just go write. So I went home that day and Eazy-E that week had put out Boys in the Hood. It is not a hit. It has just come out. I went to the record store. I was like, do you guys have any hip hop? Because people don't even remember when hip hop wasn't available.
Yeah.
Dude like opens the box. He's like, we got this. And I put it on. He's like, cruising down the street. And my dad was at the end of the record store and he looked at me and he's like, no. And I was like, I know. And I was like, put that in the bag. Right? So he didn't even know. He didn't even know I bought it because he didn't care. He wasn't paying attention. So I got home and when I got back from school, on the inside of the records, it had the number for the record label. So I went, doo-doo-doo. And I was like, hello, is Eazy-E there? And they're like, no. I said, Okay, great. Listen, I'm a big time writer in the Bay Area, and I think you've got a hit on your hands. I'd love to talk to him. Please have him give me a call, all right? Boop. Right? I go play basketball. I'm 17. I have no plan. I come back. My mom was like, oh, a boy named Eric called for you. 310. I was like, no way. I took the paper. I go to my room. Beep, boop, 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 boop. Hello? It was his house, bro.
Wow.
His house. I was like, Eazy-E? He's like, yeah, this is him. Who's this? I was like, yeah, I'd like to interview you, man. I think this is a great song. He's like, cool. He's into this. So my mom used to be a legal secretary. She had all this stuff that you could hook up to phones. So I hook up my phone. I interview him. And I ended up doing what was arguably, I don't think the first article on Eazy-E and NWA ever.
Wow.
Right? So what happens is...
For your high school...
High school newspaper, right? So, but he doesn't know who I write for. So we start talking all the time. I'm getting home from school, calling him, what's up, man? He's like, oh, man, just recording the album, man. Da, da, da. I'm like, oh, for real? Insane. I'm 17. One day. Hello? He's like, hey, what's up, man? I was like, chilling. He goes, my manager, Jerry, wanted me to ask you, who do you write for? Is it the San Francisco Chronicle or is it the San Francisco Examiner, which are the two biggest newspapers in the city?
I've got some bad news for you.
And I was like, this is that moment where your life changes for the worst. I'm 17, man. I write for the Oceana Foghorn. It's my high school newspaper. I really love your work, bro. I just wanted to, I like it. It was bad. Like, my apology was horrible. He sat there for about like 5 seconds. The phone was totally dead. And he was like, man, nobody's writing about our shit. I don't give a fuck. Run that shit. And we became extra cool. It was like that moment of honesty made us totally cool.
It could have gone one or two ways.
Yeah, totally, right? So then, like, a little bit after that, he hits me and he calls me. He's like, hey, what's up, man? I'm like, what's up? He's like, we have a show in your area. Can you come to the show? And I'm like, yeah, I can come to the show. He's like, all right, cool. So he calls me. He's in town. He stayed at the Easy 8 Motel in Richmond. The show was in San Leandro. Richmond was a death cauldron. Like Richmond, Oakland, it's murder all day. Especially in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? Cocaine's everywhere. It's a problem. So in those days, we had these jackets called starter jackets, which were these kind of satinous team jackets. I had a New York Yankees one, a blue one. And I go with two other guys who also can't fight and, are destined to be robbed. So we go, he's like, I've never been to I went to big like Coliseum shows for like Run DMC, like the Fresh Fest. These are big arenas, you know what I'm saying? But I've never been to like a real hip hop club before. And this is a roller rink that they'll do hip hop shows in. So he's like, just go to the front and, tell them your name, and they'll let you go in. And I was like, me and my boys? He was like, yeah, I'll put you down +2. So when I get there, this line is wrapping around the thing. And I go to the front, me and my boys, just some goofs, right? In a death cauldron, not really capable of much. And my boy stole his mom's car. It was a whole thing. So I go to the front of the line, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on the list, And they're like, get the fuck out the line, fool. And I'm like, and he's looking, he's like, I don't see your name. And they're like, yo, if he's not on the list, we taking his jacket. Like, I'm like, oh no, this is bad. Like, so then I'm looking, I'm like, there, that's me. He's like, that's you? I'm like, that's me. He's like, all right, y'all go in. So then I'm like, everyone's like, oh, like they felt bad. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I went to the back, but this is even before NWA has a video. So I don't really know what he looks like. So I'm kind of bumbling around the back. He's kind of bumbling around the back. And then he's like, are you? And I'm like, are you? He's like, hey. So we start hanging out and we take a picture. Like I still have the picture. I could send it to you.
Yeah.
It's me, Easy, Dre, Arabian Prince, Ren. Yella is in the shot, but Ice Cube is not, because Ice Cube's dad didn't think that rap was going to work. And he was a student at Arizona State. Wow. So I was like, well, who's going to, he was like, well, we're just going to do his lyrics, for him, but he can't go on tour. Like, it was that early in NWA's career.
What year was that?
It might have been 1988. I think it was 87. And I recently found a piece of paper that he autographed for me on the back of the flyer for that show. It was nuts.
That's awesome.
Right? So then, now he's cool with me, right? I wrote the article. It was trash. It was a horrible article. I had no business writing that article. But essentially what happened is, between Dr. King, Mr. King was my counselor, Mr. King. Between Mr. King believing I could be a journalist when I didn't think I could be anything, and Eazy-E giving me the opportunity to write, they changed the trajectory of my entire life, because I wouldn't even be here if that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? So like, he's hitting me, still calling me, we're talking shit on the phone all the time, and he was like, hey, I got this new girl group called JJ Fad. You want to go to the show? They're coming to your town. I was like, sure. It's like JJ Fad, the Two Live Crew, EPMD. I'm 17. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm running around with the top rappers in their explosive prime.
Yeah.
And like, I still haven't been able to capture what I saw, what it meant, what I understood, but it's why I'm able to talk about hip hop history, et cetera, with like so much clarity, because I really did see a lot of stuff at the beginning, especially, you know, in the explosion of the West Coast, you know, and like gangster rap and stuff like that. So that was like 17. So 2 years later, fast forward, I work at Tower Records, which used to be a really big record store chain. And my boy there was Jason Slater. He died last year. Snake River Conspiracy. So he was in an industrial metal band called Snake River Conspiracy. So he used to do security there. And so people used to rob stuff out of the I'll do this now because he's dead. out of the register. And like, Jason was like, he was kind of a bully, you know what I'm saying? So he was like punking fools, and security was leaning on everybody, and the security team was nuts. I'm not even gonna tell you all the stuff that they were fully into, but like $600 was missing from the register. Jason's like, yeah, so-and-so just confessed. I was like, what? He confessed? He stole $600? Like, that's a fucking felony. You know what I'm saying? And then, so like, after we got off work, he was like, I really took the $600. I was like, what? He was like, I just yelled at him until he said he took it. I was like, gangster. So he was my boy. And so at that time, Digital Underground dropped. And at their record release party, I went early and I saw Ray Love. Shout out to Ray Love. And Ray was in a group called One Nation with Tupac. And me and Ray met at this girl's house. She used to always throw these parties because her parents would always be gone. And that's how we met. And he was like, oh, you remind me of my friend Tupac. So when I walked into the thing, he was like, hey, Tupac, this is that guy I was telling you about. Hey, what's up? My name is Tupac. And we became cool. And someone was like, yo, let's take a picture. And like, if you put in like Tupac Adisa, Adisa, like, you'll see it. Wow. And like, it's way before he's a star. Like, we're all just like, you know what I mean? And like, we became cool. So me and Pac were cool, you know, and we stayed cool, you know what I mean? Until he was killed. But so I started writing about hip hop when I was like 19, for a Black Panther newspaper called The Commemorator. Because Money B from Digital Underground, his father was a Black Panther. So I used to do a lot of political, radical stuff when I was young. And that's where I met his father. So I was like, you want to write for the paper? So I was like, yeah. And then that turned into me writing for The Source and Rap Pages and Vibe Magazine. And it just kind of never stopped.
Man, that's such a crazy story that you just kind of fortuitously was placed inside the birth of hip-hop. You know, with some of the biggest names in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It was one of the best runs hip hop ever had, and to be right there to see so much of it is just really an honor. And it's weird, you know, because like sometimes, like honestly, like I'll see somebody in a Tupac shirt, and I get sad because that was my real homie. You know what I mean? Like, I understand he's like, you know, one of the biggest artists ever and all that, but it's still weird.
It must be strange to know someone before they become one of the biggest superstars in the world. You know, Tupac is, even today, so long since he's been around, that he's still one of the biggest names in music.
Yeah. It's nuts, man. I remember, I don't remember who said it, but one time I saw some discussion about music history and culture, and there was a guy from England, old white dude, I don't know, he said Tupac is one of the greatest poets in the history of the 20th century, whatever. And I was like, unbelievable. Like, I just would have never, like, I felt he was awesome, of course, but you know what I mean? To see that kind of him, I would have never thought that, you know what I mean? And so it was an honor, man. I think the weird thing about my life, if I have to be honest, is just that for reasons I still have not yet understood, the universe, God, Allah, however you, has placed me in the presence of some of the greatest people ever in whatever they do shortly before they blow. That's my life pattern. Right? Like, I start, getting into jiu-jitsu. I pitched it to rap pages. The editor was like, yeah, you can do a story on jiu-jitsu. That's cool. I was like, cool. I want to interview Hoist Gracie, Helio Gracie. And they were like, all right, cool. So I go to the Torrance Academy. At this time, I'm already training with Half.
Do you remember when this was?
I can pull it up. I can show you I can show you. Recently a guy sent me, because I lost a lot of my old stuff, sent me scans of that article. And it's me, Haleo, and Horion.
Well,
Hieron was a green belt.
Was it pre UFC 1?
It was like UFC 2 or something. Like, actually, you know what? In the thing, Vitor Belfort had just gotten into the UFC, and Hoist didn't like him. And Hoist was like, he's trying to act like he's part of the family. He's not our family. Like, he went on a whole... I was like, oh.
He was Coulson.
Yeah. It was problems. You know what I'm saying? But also, I wrote... I'm not sure if this is a fact, but I believe I wrote the first article on jiu-jitsu for Maxim magazine. Christina Applegate was on the cover.
Wow.
Yeah. And I interviewed I interviewed Half, and he took pictures with Dave, but then the editors made some jokey comments, like, in the actual thing with the pictures, because people didn't know what jiu-jitsu was. You know what I mean? So like Half was like Dave was trying to armbar Half, and like Half had like picked him up like he was getting ready to pass, like, you know what I'm saying? And the editor put like sniffing the undies or something like that.
Half's the wrong guy that makes
when I got to the academy, he was like, hey man, what the fuck is this? I was like, yo, I didn't have anything to do. I was like, yo, he was pissed. But the article was dope. It was just, they made like a funny joke, but he did not think that shit was funny.
I mean, if you were to rank the Gracies in not having sense of humor, I feel like Half might be. He's a serious dude.
He's number one in that. Like, not when he's not in the mood.
He's not in the mood.
It's not time. It's not time. It's not time. It's not time.
So look, since you mentioned it, let's do that. Because I'm sure we'll come back around to hip hop stuff, and we'll talk about chess as well. But sounds like you were in jiu-jitsu early on. How
97.
How long that's early.
Yeah.
How did you come across jiu-jitsu, or how did you get into
hilarious story?
Hit me with it.
So, I grew up in a city called San Bruno. It's known for nothing, really. I mean, it's a cool city. It's a suburb of San Francisco. And my boy Jamie, the Himes, he lived down the street, a little older than me. We both loved hip hop, but he loved martial arts more than me. Like, I loved Bruce Lee and stuff like that, and I tried to make nunchucks or whatever, but I mean, I did judo. I sucked at it. I was really small. When I graduated high school, I weighed 100 pounds exactly. Wow. Like, I was supremely small human being. All my homeboys were jocks. I was the run to the crew. No love, looking like a nerd. Chicks don't like you. Everything that comes with that. So one day, he knew a guy who taught Eskrima, Filipino stick fighting. It was dope. So he was Filipino. So he brought me along. I'm trying to learn. Horrible at Eskrima. Absolutely horrible at Eskrima. But I won't quit. I just stay horrible. And one day, he's like, dude, I got to show you something. And I'm like, what? He's like, look, these guys from Brazil, they're called the Gracies, bro. Like, they fight anybody. Check it out. So he puts it in, VHS, plays. It's Gracie in Action 2.
Yes.
And I'm like...
For those, just quickly, for those who don't know, I know that we've mentioned it on the podcast, or I've mentioned it on the podcast before. Gracie in Action was this series of... It was basically documentation of their challenge matches. So early on... sometimes you got to give it education.
It matters. It is important concept
because it is. I feel like the Gracie in Action is a really significant cultural artifact in grappling, which a lot of people don't know about. But the Gracies would the way that they really got popular alongside the UFC, but I think it was even before it was before the UFC.
Yeah, this was pre-UFC.
Yeah, which was they first came to America and they took out an advert saying that if you want to get your arm broken or choked unconscious, then come down to the Gracie Academy. And they were basically offering, I think it was $10,000 to anyone who could beat them in a no rules match. And they'd have boxers come in, wrestlers come in, karate guys come in, street fighters come in, and they'd sign a waiver, they'd close the door, and then they'd fight. And they'd fight bare knuckle, and they'd fight with no rules, and it always looked the same. They would, they'd take them down, they'd take them out, they'd slap them a few times, they'd give the back, they choke them out, they get back up. The karate guy thinks there was a fluke, it's not going to happen twice in a row, and then the exact same thing happens. And then I think it was Horian would comment, afterwards. He would do like a voiceover, and he'd say, "You can see my cousin here is on mount now, and he's gonna strike because he doesn't need to punch him, and then he's gonna take the neck." And he'd just be like over and over again with all of these different videos, and it was that which sort of, I think, eventually would become the UFC, and it was sort of the precursor for that. So Gracie in action, and I remember I had, I think, downloaded, some files of the Gracie in action and watched it, and, you got to imagine back in the day what it must have been when you talk about that now. If you were to show that to someone who was into MMA now, they'd go, okay, cool. Whatever. So it's some guys doing some shitty MMA, some guys who don't know MMA are fighting with some guy who knows a bit. But back in the day, this was like,
it was unbelievable, right? So I'm like, this is a con. No way. They just get on you like me and my cousin get on top of each other and punch each other, and that's the fight. No way. No way that's passing as a martial art. Especially like, I grew up watching Kung Fu as a TV show, watching Bruce Lee, right? There's no way that it's this easy. And I trained a little bit of judo, like I said, right? And he's like, do you think that I could take you down? Because he's bigger than me, but he's not like a giant. You know what I mean? I was like, if I'm punching, nah. He's like, let's try it. So we clear some space in his parents' downstairs, tackles me on the mount. And I'm like, okay. I was like, hold on, let me redo that, bro. Let me redo that.
See? It's the natural instinct. You always think it's a fluke.
And so he's like, boom, he takes me down again, right? He just playfully slapped. Like, we're not fighting. He's just, showing me that I can't stop him from taking me down.
But he'd only learned this from watching Gracie in action, right?
Yeah. Oh, he had a few the instructionals, the early Orient instructionals, right? So he's like, yo, I got some instructionals, bro. Like, we should train these things together.
Wow.
So I'm like, word? And he's like, yeah. So we start training it together. This is pre-UFC, right? It's just me and him going over stuff. So then I had just gotten married, and I moved to San Jose, and I worked at a supermarket. And there were the guys that did security. So one day I was like, hey, like, I know you guys are security, but can you fight though? And they was like, of course we can fight. And they were bigger than me, obviously. By this time, I'm like 160. And I was like, I don't think you guys can really fight though. And they were like, well, what's up? So we go to the back. This is insanity. We go to the back. I tussle with them. I don't, we're not full out fighting, but we're trying to see what's up. And I'm taking them down. It's not a problem. They're like, damn, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I'm kind of sick. I'm actually kind of like, I think I'm like a lightweight Gracie in here. You know what I'm saying? I still sucked horribly, of course. So I'm totally into it. And then one day, Jamie calls me. He's like, hey, what's up, man? And I'm like, he's like, yo, there's the original UFC breaks. Hoist beats Dan Severn. And that's when I was like, holy shit, I have to do this. I have to do this. Because he only weighs 20 pounds more than me. Because I was like 165, Hoist was 185, and Dan Severn was like 260 or something. I was like, I got to do this. So he calls me and he's like, there's a guy named Half Gracie. He's connected to Hoist. You need to go there and see what's up. So I'm like, I'm going. So I call. Bobby Southworth answers the phone. Bobby Southworth was the Savage. And Dave Camarillo, they were both blue belts at the time. He answers. I'm like, hey man, I want to take jiu-jitsu. He's like, okay, come through. He's like, do you have a gi? I'm like, no. He goes, you're probably gonna want to go get a gi. So because San Jose has the San Jose judo program is so big, I go to like this Japanese store, buy this gigantic gi with these bell bottom sleeves, go in there, and they beat the crap out of me. Not in like an MMA way, but you gotta understand, I didn't work out, I didn't know how to fight, and I was just trying to do what, it didn't work, bro. I'm just getting murked, right? So, and they weren't punking me, they weren't being mean. It was just the way, it's what training is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it'd be same if we're training with some guys.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I remember being in so much pain from the exercise, from the strenuous, right? Plus getting my ass kicked, that I was waking up in my sleep, like, and I was like looking at the ceiling, and I was like, this really hurts. I was like, do you think you can really do this? Like, this is not like the tape stuff that Jamie was going over with you. This hurts. And I was like, go back. And if it hurts this bad again, you can quit. But if it doesn't, you'll stay. And so I went, and it didn't hurt as bad. And now we're talking. You know what I'm saying? It was fun. It was crazy.
So was this the Gracie Academy in Torrance?
No. I visited Torrance as a journalist.
I got you.
Right, but I was
This
already
was with
training.
Dave Camarillo.
Yeah. So this is at Mountain View. So it's Half, Bobby Southworth.
So how Gracie was the main instructor there?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it was Half, Bobby, and Dave would teach, if Half wasn't there, but that was rare. You know what I mean? He was pretty much there every day.
Because,
Gumby,
obviously
Scotty.
Half Gracie's in San Francisco was like,
Yeah.
Obviously that's still there today, and that must have been one of a big hub of jiu-jitsu at that time.
It was
there
like
little.
Caesar's, House, and then I think oh man, I feel disrespectful because I'm disrespecting somebody right now, because there's a guy he throws all the tournaments in Santa Cruz. How am I doing this? It's totally wrong right now. But there was like 3 people. That's the point. You know what I mean?
And you've been training ever since.
Yeah. But off and on with major gaps. I'm old. So like, I would train, get a belt, disappear, train, get a belt, disappear.
For any reason?
I mean, mainly just family, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, my son was born right after I really started trying to train, you know what I'm saying? And like, I was at House. I was a white belt, and just, I was not a standout guy. You got to remember, like, it was like me, BJ Penn, JD Penn, Dave Camarillo, Cameron Earl.
You were training with BJ back in the early
He
days?
lived down the street from me. He lived like less than a mile from my house.
What was he like?
Hilarious and tough as nails.
Yeah.
His first class I watched. And
so you were training before him?
Yeah. Well, he was training in Hawaii, as far as Half goes, you know what I'm saying? So he probably knew more jiu-jitsu than me at the time, but I didn't really know. I remember Dave was like stack passing him, and Dave's stack pass was nasty and painful. And I remember like BJ being so pliant, it didn't hurt him. Like, I remember he was like, does this hurt? Like, Dave was checking, like, does this hurt? And he's like, no. And I was like, how? Who is this kid?
Yeah.
So I can hear him talking, and I can't really make sure what his accent is. And there's this white dude taking pictures and like talking in between. And I'm like, oh, that must be his dad. Well, that actually was Tom Callos, who was BJ Penn's first teacher in Hawaii, who flew him out. And he's also the stepfather of Keenan Cornelius.
That's right.
Right. So I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, because of BJ was so flexible, I thought he was from India.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this dude's from India, and he does yoga and knows about jiu-jitsu, and he's going to be a problem for the planet.
He was a problem for
the planet. And so when they first showed up, they weren't really living in Mountain View. They rented a hotel. And I remember one day I went to their hotel because he was training all the time. So he would go in the morning class, go back and sleep, come back to the night class. You know what I'm saying? Him and JD and Reagan, I think, came later. I don't really remember Reagan being there as much, but me and JD were actually a little bit closer than me and BJ, but we were always hanging out. But I remember going to the hotel room. It was like at a Holiday Inn or something. And like, their table had like so many medals. It was covered. Like, you couldn't see the table.
This is at the hotel room?
Yeah. Because this is where they
These
live.
just medals that they picked up whilst they were...
from competing all the time.
Wow.
And I was like, Jesus Christ, these dudes are savages. And so, so I stayed with Hal for a while, but then my son was born. I had a job. The job that I had in the Valley kind of made it so I couldn't really make it to Mountain View. And Charles had just moved in, and he was in Daly City, which is closer to San Bruno. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start training because Half Gracie San Francisco had started, but it was like San Francisco was too far. Daly City was short. It was easier. So I went to Charles's, and Charles is different from Half because, so you have Hyan, Half, and Henzo, right? And you have Charles. Well, Charles is from Bahia. He didn't grow up with them. So, and because he has a different mother, he's actually taller. So all of their body type fits their jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But Charles' body type fit my body type because I'm taller. So, like, at house, you would never open your closed guard. That is still my default setting. If I wrap my legs around you, homie, and, like, we're not playing, my job is to murder you, and you don't get to leave until you tap. That's kind of like what, you know what I'm saying? But, like, Charles is like, why fight? Open up. Do this, do that. I was like, what? So he really kind of changed my game in that regard. I got my blue belt from him. And then, even then though, I mean, it was still rowdy, man. Like, I mean, being at house was rough. You know what I'm saying? And again, I was not an alpha, in that space. I was just surviving, right? I was just surviving. But, like, even at Charles, like, there was I think I told the story before, but one day a guy from Novo União came in, and I was a respectable blue belt, there. And he starts talking Portuguese to this guy named Peter, and he was basically trying to see, like, what's up? Which one of y'all want it? You know what I'm saying? And Peter's a heavier dude, way heavier than me. This guy was a purple belt. We're both blue. There's only a few of us. It's a Friday night. Fridays are thin, at least at that time, Friday nights were thin for jiu-jitsu. And he taps Peter. So I'm like, I'm ready, right? But I had one problem. I had spent the previous 2 months studying Novo União highlight reels.
Okay.
And so I'm terrified. Because there was this guy, I think his name was Thiago. He died in a car crash. It was really sad. He was a savage. And he was the first dude in jiu-jitsu. Remember when dudes used to wear their hair like leopard prints?
Yes.
In their hair? He was like, I think, the first guy to do it. He was from Novo now, and he was a beast. I don't remember his last name, sadly. And I'm afraid. Because I'm like, I've been watching this team's highlight reels. I'm scared. So we roll, and I'm hesitant. And while I'm getting dragged around the mats, Peter called a guy named Sanzio, who was another purple belt. Savage, though. Brazilian. He
he phoned him.
Yeah, he called him like, yo, there's a guy here from Novo now.
There's a guy here. He tapped me out.
He's going
Get
down.
here. Get here now.
He's killing Adisa. I'm calling in for reserves. So
bring the cavalry.
Right. So by the time they finished, and I was so mad at myself because I was, you know how it is when your head's just not fully there. He took my left arm. I remember I was like, God damn it. So I sit up, and when I sit up, I see Sanzio, and he's holding his gi in a ball, and he's got like his purple belts all wrapped up in his gi. He said something to the dude in Portuguese. The dude said something back, and he was like, I'm gonna go put on my gi. And I looked at that dude like, you're about to get murdered. You know what I'm saying? Boy, Sanzio came out and put the clinic on that man.
Yeah.
Like over and over again. So, I mean, that element in jiu-jitsu was still real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, like I think that back in the day, we talk about old school jiu-jitsu, like you got to smash them. Mm-hmm. You can't, there's no flow rolling. And I think it comes back from a time where, when you're young, you got a point to prove.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And as you get older, you're a little bit more sure of yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah.
And I think that there was an infancy, there was an adolescence in jiu-jitsu.
For sure.
Where jiu-jitsu was a tough guy, but it wanted to prove it to the world.
Absolutely.
So it did it with the Gracie challenges. Mm-hmm. It did it with the UFC. Mm-hmm. But then you can't just go out and do it in the UFC. You've got to live that mentality. So the culture was, we smash. It's aggressive. It's fighting all the time. And
for real,
it's not for everyone. If you're a pussy, don't train jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu is not for pussies. It's for badasses. And then I think as jiu-jitsu got older and so many people did it, and it was proved without any doubt of its effectiveness and its martial superiority as a one-on-one through the UFC. I think it's now got to a point where it's a bit more sure of itself, and it doesn't need to prove itself at any opportunity.
It's
but
mellowed.
It's definitely mellowed because you'll have people who are savages, but you don't all have to be a savage to prove that jiu-jitsu makes you a savage.
No, for sure. I mean, at those times, like if you wore a Gracie shirt, it could happen that somebody would be shopping and be like, "Yo, jiu-jitsu sucks. What's up?" Like it could be that way
in the States.
Oh yeah,
really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Because I always found,
in those early days, like I'll say like, probably until about 2005. I know, when I was at house, I remember one time somebody whose name I do really forget, but he had the shirt on. Somebody tried to check him and he didn't fight. And I remember there being discussion about like how he should have fought, how that was not a good look. You know what I mean? So I knew every time I put the shirt on that in the very back of my mind, no matter what I was doing, I'm at a barbecue, in the back of my mind, one of these dudes may want it. I need to be, you know what I mean? And
it's fun. I just finished watching the last season of Cobra Kai. And do you watch that show?
I didn't see the new season.
It's so funny, man. Yeah. I watch that show and I don't it's so dumb, right? Like Cobra Kai is the dumbest show. But here's the thing. And usually I watch the show and I go, I mean, the adult actors are pretty good. The kid actors are so bad, I go, the whole premise of this show is so stupid and it's written so stupid and the fights are so, but I'm totally cool with it because you can tell that the creators of the show know that it's stupid.
Yeah,
right.
It's kind of campy with deliberate intent.
It's like where you've got, the Valley Karate Tournament is this massive thing, and like karate is so important in the Valley and all of this stuff.
No, totally.
And everyone has to do karate.
That's right, everybody.
Because there was a deleted scene where there was from one of the first, second, or third season, I think maybe the second, where they they're rocking up and there's a jiu-jitsu guy there, Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy there. I mean, it's such a shame that they didn't keep it in because, it's such a big show. And I think obviously people know what jiu-jitsu is now, but it's such a shame that they didn't keep it in there where, these karate guys are walking around and this jiu-jitsu guy's there and he's like, this is bullshit what you're doing. Like, I actually kick your ass. I can't remember exactly.
I murder all of you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so true. So I watch it. But it's so funny because you watch Cobra Kai and you're like, they'll walk around with their Cobra Kai t-shirt and then the Miyagi Dojo guys are like, oh, we got to beat them up. But then there was a time in jiu-jitsu where it was a little bit like that, where there's these little rivalries. And that goes back to Brazil as well, where people always forget, and I make a point of always mentioning it when the topic's brought up, that Brazilian jiu-jitsu was honed on the streets of Brazil. It was not, it was not built in a dojo. It was not built in a mountain temple. It was crafted on beaches. It was crafted in nightclubs. It was crafted, in hand-to-hand combat, in true street fights by the Gracies.
I mean, how, one day, because again, I wasn't a standout guy. I was just a guy, and I remember I was like, dude, how can I get better? How can I get better? And he was like, when I was a purple belt, there was this black belt, and he said that he could beat me. And I didn't like that he said that he could beat me. And so he said, so one day we decide after class, we're going to go to the, have it out. You know what I'm saying? Same school. I need to know that these guys are in the same school. So they had a fight, and Half got the mount, and he pounded him out, and he wouldn't stop pounding him. And he said after, somebody saw him and was like, dude, what happened? He was like, oh, I got hit by a car. Like, that's how bad he looked, that he could say he got hit by a car.
Wow.
And it be believed.
Yeah.
Right? So he's like, when I realized that I had to really get better and that I had to improve, I decided that I would do 100 arm bars every day. He was like, 100 arm bars. He goes, if you do 100 arm bars every day, you'll be better. And I was like, okay. But I didn't do no 100 arm bars. I thought that was insane. And I didn't get better at that time. And then I remember at some point I was a blue belt plateauing, and I was like 100 arm bars. And I started doing 100 arm bars. You know what I mean? Like it's jiu-jitsu's weird because nothing that we do we knew before. But, you know, you have to learn it, but after you learn it, you have to do it. And that doing, it separates everything in this art.
Yeah.
You know, I could show you a move. I remember a guy named Mike Pacino, one of Willie Cahill's top judo guy. His best dude, he was showing one of his best dudes. He was showing a bunch of stuff one day. He showed these chokes one day. And I was like, Mike, aren't you worried about showing all this stuff? And he was like, nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to practice it. I don't care. He's like, I do these chokes all the time. They don't do these chokes. I can show whatever. They're not going to practice like I practice. And he was right. He was right. He was right.
Yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu is that there's knowing and there's knowing. And I was reading a book recently, and I wish I remembered the terms because I need to remember them. But it's this concept that I've always, or especially recently, but that we all know. But there's something about finding the vocabulary for a concept which allows you to internalize it on a deeper level. You know, you're just thinking, as soon as you're like, what is that? What is that? What is that? That's this. And now you go, okay, that, and I can see that here, and I can see it there. Vocabulary is so important, and understanding these things. And it was the difference. It was the two different types of knowing from learning something and knowing from doing something, right? And we know the difference. And I need to remember what the names of these. It's like a Japanese or Chinese word for the difference between knowing something from learning, knowing something from doing. And in jiu-jitsu, you learn it first, and then you learn it second when you do it. And the more you do it, the more you learn it.
Totally.
And you can't cheat that.
You can never do it. You know, as an instructor now, sometimes like my students will ask me a question. So I have this way of teaching that I actually got from Denny Procopos. So Denny Procopos was Eddie Bravo's first black belt. And he and I met at Charles's. He was 13 when I met him.
Wow.
I was a grown man already, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Denny. And he was the first person to footlock me in sparring. I remember he was so small. And I picked him up, old school. You know how you would grab the gi?
Yeah.
You pick him up, old school, Half Gracie, boom. I pick him up. And I remember, even though we were cool, his eyes got really big. Because you know what I mean? Because I picked him up so easy. And he was like, he was looking around, and Charles was sitting against the wall. And so I start pushing his thigh down, you know, da-da-da-da. And he looks over at Charles, and Charles is like, do the move. He just,
now,
do the move. And I'm like, 13-year-old, let me show you. And he like, whoop, whoop. Next thing I know, he got me in a straight footlock. And I was like, what? And I remember when I tapped, he was like afraid I was going to be mad. And I was like, that was cool. He was like, for real? And like, that's my boy. Like, I love Denny. We're tight. What was my point about Denny? What was I bringing up? I had a point about Denny Procopos. Bringing up Denny, the footlock, Denny, practice. You said something about doing. I have lost it.
It happens.
I apologize. That was horrible.
Nah, not at all. Not at all.
That was horrible.
I mean, at least 50% of the things that I start saying, I forget why I started saying them. So you're on in one now. I'm
so
50%
sorry.
of the time. No, we were talking about the difference between learning something, just knowing it, and then actually doing that thing and kind of learning it on a deeper level. So, you know, something that you mentioned earlier, which I wanted to talk about, just because it's the thought that came into my head when you mentioned it, something away from your particular, you know, individual, you know, something that when you talk to someone, you talk to them about something, you know, their journey that's very personal, and then aspects of their journey that are very applicable to many, many people. And when you said you took lots of breaks, I never took any breaks. I couldn't, you know, any time that I wasn't training was time that I literally couldn't train through injuries and stuff like that. But obviously, the majority of people who start jiu-jitsu do not finish jiu-jitsu or not continue in the train jiu-jitsu. What was the longest break you ever took?
Oh my gosh. I don't know, man.
Roughly. Because are we talking 6 months? Are we talking 6 years?
No, we're talking years, homie.
Okay.
Like off, right? And so what that means is I'm not going to any class. I developed solo drills on my own because I wanted to train, but I couldn't. So
okay, so that's different.
Drill.
That's different though. So you're telling me that in these times that you couldn't go to class, you were still in that jiu-jitsu mindset.
All the way. Watching videos, watching, DVDs, like this is like when Pride was brand new and stuff like that. And I used to go to this Japanese market, and it was funny because remember how you interviewed that dude and he was saying he went to the sex shop and then it was the same thing. So it was a Japanese market, and this one area they had videos, and it was like porn and then fighting. And then I would be like, I'll take the Pride.
Yeah.
Pride 25. Emelianenko, Fedor, this one. Right.
Yeah.
And so I would get those and other things like them, you know what I mean? And I would watch them. So in my break, I was staying as present as possible. You know, I always say that I had 1 foot in the academy, I had 1 foot in, fatherhood and all of that, you know what I mean? That's
a very different situation. My question was going to be, because from my perspective as an instructor, or is it as someone who kind of considers it their mission to get more people doing jiu-jitsu, and an important part of that is keeping the people that are doing jiu-jitsu. I want to know when someone quits as a blue belt, why do they quit? How can we stop people from quitting? And then the next question is, well, you know what? If we've lost them, how do we get them back?
Right.
And because for a lot of people, I always tell people, don't quit, because if you quit, the chance of you coming back is so slim.
It's so slim,
because once you're out the door, it's very, very hard to get back in.
Dust gets on the gi, the metals.
You used to sitting on the sofa nice and warm, nice and comfortable. No one's sweating in your mouth. No one's trying to choke your face.
It's so weird, right? Like I remember when I stopped training at Charles, it was deep, right? Like me and Gumby were always cool. So Gumby and Scotty created onthemat.com, which was, an old school brand, one of the first brands that really put jiu-jitsu and music and stuff together in a way where these clips of like you'd see a move done like 1 minute right before the sub, then they'd play it again in slow motion, and then it would be hip hop and stuff like that. And I know like Mark Lehman used to do some of this stuff around the same time. I think he maybe predated the way that Gumby and Scotty were doing it, but they did it better, to be frank. And I loved what Mark Lehman was doing. He used to put these videos out under the name Takezo, which was Miyamoto Musashi's actual name. But anyway, so me and Gumby were hanging out, and at this time I'm fast forwarding many years. He's got his black belt from a roundhouse waist, right? He now runs Heroes Martial Arts, and he had this idea, I'm going to start Heroes. So we were going to a Public Enemy concert, and we were at dinner, and he was like, so are you training? Because I'm writing about jiu-jitsu, but I'm not training at all. And I'm like, nah, da-da-da. He's like, so what's your goal in jiu-jitsu? And I was like, I just want to be a good purple. Like, I would be happy if I was a good purple belt that people respected. And he was like, well, I'm about to start a school. You want to train with me? And I was like, yeah. So he had a warehouse. So now Heroes is a great school in downtown San Jose on 1st Street. And we have a second location on North Capitol, East Side, San Jose. The original Heroes, though, was a warehouse not far from the San Jose airport that was run by a club guy who had Rottweilers and stuff. It was just really a warehouse with mats and like club stuff upstairs, And you couldn't come if he didn't invite you. So like you'd go to the door, thing would slide, whoosh. Yeah, it's Adisa. Gumby, it's Adisa. Let him in. All right. You come in, whatever. Right? And you couldn't bring somebody. So if I was like, oh, I got my friend Danny, you want to come? But I couldn't bring you. He had to see you rolling somewhere else and say, Daniel, why don't you come? And I thought it was weird at the beginning, but what he was really doing was curating the students he wanted, So when he got his actual physical building, these people work at Google and Facebook, but they're tough dudes. They're attorneys and carpenters, but they're tough dudes. They're college students and whatever, but they're tough dudes, but they're not maniacs, right? Like, they're not maniacs, but they're real tough and they'll put it on you. You know what I'm saying? So, he really curated that. And I think that, student retention in jiu-jitsu is a really big deal. You know what I mean? It's a really big deal. I think that most people don't have goals. If I have to be honest, it took me forever because I didn't have a goal. I knew when I'm there with Dave Camarillo and BJ and JD murking me, I think I'm fixing to be a Mundial champion? No. You think like BJ's first fight was at like a high school in Modesto. Like the ropes were like real ropes, like twine. You know what I'm saying? The floor was like a green rug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I knew I didn't have those aspirations. I'm married with a kid. I'm small. I'm not, the most technical guy in the class. I didn't have a goal. But I think at some point, when I got to purple, the idea of quitting felt insane. Right? Like if you can keep somebody to purple, they'll stay for their own sake.
Yeah,
right.
There's that I think it's that blue to purple.
Yo,
that's where 90% of the people leave.
Right. You know what I mean? Because
that's not to say they don't leave at purple, but I think there's something about coming in as a beginner, going through the ringer, getting beaten up, and then you get this achievement that by the time most people get their blue belt, they want that belt so bad, right? They've been training a year, 2 years. They want that belt so bad. They've blood, sweat, and tears in that belt. And then they get it, and then they realize that nothing changes. You turn up at training on Monday,
you're still getting beat up.
The same guy who beat you up on Friday beats you up today. And the same guy that you beat up today.
Yo.
And nothing really changes. And then they go, that's it. And
that's
I
the
think
journey?
I think yeah, and it's going to be like that for purple and brown and black. The answer is yeah, it is, because it's you got to totally reframe why you're doing this. It like you don't measure yourself in the day before you got your blue and the day after you get your blue. You look at yourself today, look at yourself in 10 years time and the different skills that you have and all of that stuff. But I think that is the hardest thing for so many people. But if you can keep them, if you can do something to keep them in that year, 2 years after blue belt, by the time they get to purple and brown, I think you've pretty much got them for life.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because once I got my purple, I was like, yo, I'm going to do this forever. But then what happened is I got injured. I took a MCL injury and an LCL injury.
Well, that's the thing that can get people out of the game. Yeah.
And that'll slow you all the way down. Because I really didn't have a good doctor. My doctor did not care, like at all. Like, you're all right. I need a brace. I'm all messed up. So I had to rehab myself because I couldn't close my leg. Like, I'm sitting like this.
Yeah.
I couldn't. My leg was stuck out there. And I had to, like, push it through all that scar tissue. You know what I'm saying? That took a long time. And then if something bumped it, it was this whole thing. Then you're leaning so much on your opposite leg that it gets fatigued. And now you got problems on your other leg. And that's daunting, man. You know what I mean? That's real daunting. But, Gumby was always really nice. He was always really different in that he was one of the first guys who ran a school that didn't care if you trained somewhere else, which was unbelievable.
Back
if you trained somewhere else
back in the
house,
day, yeah. No. I mean, yeah, you get jumped in the street for training somewhere else back in the day.
Not an option.
Yeah.
I remember the first day when I went. So I didn't realize there were things you don't realize in the culture and the family. I didn't know what a crayonch was. Okay, a crayonch is a traitor in Jiu Jitsu. Like if you trade crayonch. So I remember my very first day, I'm putting on my gi at Charles's, and Charles comes in, he washes his hands, he washes his face, and he says, "Do you know what crayonch means?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Do you know what crayonch means?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "It means," and he's not looking at me, he's looking in the mirror like, He's like,
wait. So he's standing, looking at himself in the mirror.
Yeah, washing his hands
and
like his
and
face
you
and
walk
stuff.
in.
I'm putting my gi on, and he walks in, and
This is like a movie scene,
dude. This is like some Godfather type stuff, bro. And he's like,
you're the only one in the room.
Yeah, it's just us. And he's like, "Do you know what crayonch means?" And I'm like,
"Oh, I'm doing this. The next time I'm washing my hands and someone else walks in.
Yo,
just in the club.
Yeah,
to some random guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what a crayonch is?"
And he's like, "It means traitor." And I was like, "What?" And he just looked at me. He's like, "I hope you are not a traitor." And he just walked out. And I'm sitting there looking in the mirror like,
what just happened?
I'm like, "You're not a crayonch, are you?" Right? I'm trying to, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then I started thinking, I was like,
Am I a crouch?
I was like, yo, like I left house, like maybe he's tripping. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and it was just it was crazy. It was, because those, even within the family, like, yes, they're brothers or whatever, but it's still.
Well, there was lots of rivalries between the family. Obviously, early on, Carlson split from the other Gracie side, and there was a big rivalry there. I guess to a degree, still persists to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, jiu-jitsu is a funny one.
Bro. Those were crazy times.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
People don't realize,
but they were beautiful. I wouldn't trade them for nothing. You know what I mean? I wouldn't trade them for nothing, because you realize what resilience is. Like, I remember one day, JD, like everybody talks about BJ Penn. JD, his slightly older brother, was phenomenal. And he was yoked. He was built different than BJ. BJ was always kind of slim and cut. Like, JD was yoked. And I remember one day, was he a purple belt? Nah, he was blue. And he had been lifting and he had torn one of his pec muscles. So when he came to class, he just kept his arm stuffed inside his belt. And we were doing guard pass drills. And I was like, what happened? He was like, oh, bro, I tore my pec, bro. I was like, oh, for real? And I was like, cool. I guess this would be the first time I can pass your guard. He triangled me in like 3 seconds. And if you ever want your ego shattered.
That's pretty brutal.
Okay? Shattered. And he just started laughing. And then, but it was all fun and games, but he could do it. And that type of stuff made me go, like, I could have been down on myself. Like, damn, this guy just triangle choked you with an arm in his gi. Like, you suck, which I did. But what it also meant was it's possible to have a ripped pec muscle and no arm and still win a fight. Yeah. And that's what, that's what really stuck with me, bro. It's
true. It's so important how you can sort of reframe everything in so many different ways, in a positive way and a negative way. One thing you do is you get beaten up and you go, man, I suck. Or you get beaten up and go, man, jiu-jitsu is cool. And I do jiu-jitsu. I mean, I might not be as good as this guy right now, but I'm doing the same sport as him.
Yeah, man.
And maybe I can do that to someone else one day.
Oh, I got. This is a funny BJ Penn story for you.
Yeah, hit me.
I like this one. This is actually JD BJ story. So, when BJ kind of split from Half, he had a gym at Alex Oxendine's house called Legends. It was just a garage. There was no Legends. It was a garage with mats. So BJ and them used to live about a mile from my house. So they would come and swoop me. This is when I was in my Ronin phase. I had many Ronin phases, right? Where I'm not really training anywhere, but I might bump around and go to an academy just to make sure I'm not totally dead and pick up a move or two. So I was, at this Legends phase, I'm going there. And two things happen. Remind me to talk about watching tape. That's important. If I drift, remember watching.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So, my ex-wife used to always say, I always know when you've trained with BJ because your gi smells like nothing but weed. I come back, hang it up. It's like, woof, right? So we get in the car and BJ's like, Adisa doesn't smoke, bro. Everybody roll the windows up before we get to class. So they roll the windows up. And they're hilarious. So they're passing this joint through the car in a circle, right? And every time, like, smoke, bro. I don't smoke. And they pass it right by me. Like, I'm sitting in the middle. Yeah. Boom. Smoke, bro. I don't smoke. They never failed to offer me the joint. Yeah. Every time. It never failed. They were like, Adisa doesn't smoke. You know that. Smoke, bro. I don't smoke. JD is plowing down this residential street. He had to be going 60 miles an hour. I'm not playing. And the cops pull out. Woo! They're trying to hotbox me. The car has nothing but smoke in it. I'm the only black guy in the car. So I'm like, I'm going to jail, bro. I don't even smoke and I'm going to jail. Car pulls over. Roll the windows down. I'm like, all I can see is the cop's waist because I'm in the back, the cop's standing up. And I'm like, I mean, I don't have any weed. You know, this is going through your head, right? You're like, I don't have any weed. I have no weed in my system. And I don't think, I mean, you know, I'm running through this whole thing of like, how do I not get arrested? And the guy's like, do you know how fast you were going? And JD was driving. He was like, no. And he was like, you know, you were going, 60 and a 30 or whatever. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, can I see your driver's license and registration, sir? And he's like, yeah, I'm from Hawaii. And he's like, okay, just bring out your driver's license, sir. And he pulls it out, and the cop leans into the window, and he's Hawaiian. And he's like, have a good day. Please slow down. I was like, yo, let's go take it out. And he was like, yeah, bro. Roll it back up. Smoke, bro. And they went right back to it.
Was it just because they were Hawaiian, or did
he didn't know the Hawaiian
pen?
pass, bro.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I had one like that. I was going a little bit fast, late on my way to teach a class. I got pulled over by some very angry police officers. Get out the car! Yeah. Don't put your hands in your pockets. They're looking around the car. I've got a gi in the front seat of my car. Right. Suddenly he changes. He goes, "You train?" I'm like, "Yes." Woo! What's the chance of that? I go, "I certainly do, good sir." He goes, "Oh man, I know this guy in this area." I didn't know who the fuck he was. Yeah, I know him. He's crazy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
If you say he's crazy, about a jiu-jitsu instructor, you say he's crazy, everyone would think you're talking about their instructor. Yeah, and he let me off.
Yeah,
so
no, that's awesome.
I always leave a gi in the... I haven't trained in a gi for about 10 years, but I always leave a gi in the car just in case I get pulled over.
Yo, that's smart. I'm doing that. So, watching tape.
Yes.
This is one... Like, I learned a lot. Like, this is kind of like... One of the benefits of not being one of the cooler guys who's actually dope is what you get to learn watching those that are actually dope. So one day I go over to BJ and JD's, this was before BJ fought Caro Uno, which was a devastating fight.
Yeah, that was a title fight.
That was a quick fight. You know what
I mean, I think it was 13 seconds. He knocked him out and then ran off.
He rocked him, right?
Yeah.
So he's prepping for this fight. The Legends thing is happening over at Alex's house, whatever. And he's like, JD's like, I'm going to give you this tape, bro. This is who he's fighting. I want you to watch the matches and tell me what you see when you come back tomorrow. I'm like, dope. Give me the tape. Go home. I watch it. It's like about 4 clips of fights. The UFC had sent him this tape. So I come back. He's like, what'd you see? And I was like, I mean, he seems tough, but I mean, I think BJ's got him. I'm not, worried, blah, blah. And then like, it was BJ, JD, Hoyt. Hoyt was there. And some others. And they kind of looked at each other with some disappointment about what I had said. And then JD put the tape in, and we all sat down, and they critiqued everything. And I got to hear what they were looking for, and it changed my life. It changed every video I've ever seen. Like that moment in particular, and listening to them talk about fighters, like watch when he drops before he shoots. Where's his hand before he grabs the ankle? Where's the, you know what I mean? Where does he place his knee before he throw? Yo, really changed. It changed me, bro. It changed me. You know what I mean? So like being able to pick up stuff like that. So now when I watch people, I have from those years back,
you know what you're looking for,
a clarity of things, so now when my friends are preparing or whatever, or I'm just watching a role, I can pull gems out of that role for them that, you know what I mean? But that's all from just, having been there, not necessarily been like the alpha, but, being lucky enough to be around it.
The right place at the right time. Yeah. So we've done hip hop. We've done a bit of hip hop. We've done a bit of jiu-jitsu. Let's do a bit of chess now.
Let's do it.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Hip hop was first. Jiu-jitsu came later. Chess was in between.
Chess is technically first. My father taught me how to play chess when I was 4.
Okay.
But I was not good at it. And I used to just knock all the pieces over. And I was like, this game sucks. But then later, when I got into hip hop and I started writing, I wanted a pseudonym. So I started using the Bishop of hip hop, because the Bishop was my favorite piece because it moved in angles. And I never liked attacking things straight up. I think it may have been because of my judo. Like I liked the strength of an angle. I always thought that angles were more important. So I always used that nickname. And then when I would interview rappers over the years, after the interview, I would often say, hey, do you play chess? Just because I was a nerd. And they would be like, yes. And I started realizing that all these rappers play chess, but they didn't say it, right?
Really?
They didn't say it. So then, like, if you listen to EPMD, they're probably the first record that mentions chess that I remember. Eric Sermon says, I'm in a battling state. I can't concentrate. I make a move like chess, and then I yell, checkmate. And I was like, word. So I made a mental kind of Rolodex. Anytime I would hear a rapper say anything about chess, I would just kind of remember those lines, right? And so around that time when I was 19, I also met Chuck D from Public Enemy. And on the song Rebel Without a Pause, he says, you know, no matter what the name, we're all the same pieces in one big chess game, stuff like that. So I start kind of noticing this stuff. And then, of course, the Wu-Tang Clan eventually comes out and tears stuff up. But I knew GZA before Wu-Tang Clan because he used to be on Cold Chillin' Records under the Genius. And when he did one of his first shows in San Francisco, me and him became cool. And that was like two years before Wu-Tang Clan actually formed. And I knew he liked chess back then. So I knew that these things kind of were always together. And then in like 2005, 2006, I'm talking with my boy Leo Liberon, and I was like, yo, hip hop and chess, bro. Hip Hop Chess Federation. Like, nobody cares about the U.S. Chess Federation. Let's do this. And Sway and Tech from the Wake Up Show, who I knew forever, they knew RZA, and so they connected me to RZA. And I was like, yo, let's do it. Now, around the same time, I was trying to track down Josh Waitskins, you know, who is the subject of the book Searching for Bobby Fischer. And he wrote this amazing book that everybody should read called The Art of Learning.
Yes, great.
Which deals with jiu-jitsu in part. At the time, I only thought he did kung fu. I didn't know that he did jiu-jitsu. Then once I had tried to interview him, he never responded. Then once my book was done, he was like, hey, what's up, dude? Sorry, I haven't hit you back. I was like, oh, man. So I was like, yo, I know you do like Tai Chi and stuff, but like, have you ever done jiu-jitsu? He's like, yes. So we were like,
he was Marcelo Garcia's first black belt, I think.
Yeah. He was his first American black belt.
Yeah.
And so we totally connected. We started doing these events where we're doing, basically I started a nonprofit called the Hip Hop Chess Federation. It doesn't exist anymore. But for a long time, what we did was we fused music, chess, and martial arts to promote unity, strategy, and nonviolence. Like, that was the idea. So we would go into the worst schools. We would go to, you know, the juvenile halls, and we would talk about the value of chess. Like, that, you know, you're in the clink because of your decision making. And if you had more clarity about what your options were, you would have chosen different. You see what I'm saying? And so at the beginning, it was really cool. We had like big sponsors like Ubisoft, Microsoft, stuff like that. But then 2009, when the economy tanked, what we were doing seemed way too esoteric. And I realized that I actually, like, who cares if Jay-Z talks about Bobby Fischer on this song? How does that actually help Jimmy not be in the clink? Or how does this help Shelly realize that she can be a president of a company or the country and go do something? So I was like, damn, dude, like, you actually have to do more than just like cite these hip hop lyrics. So I created a curriculum that helped people understand decision making, long and short term goal planning, what the relevance of sacrifice in your life was, right, for a thing and stuff like that. And so, man, got on the cover of Chess Life magazine.
Wow.
The week I got on Chess Life magazine, Jennifer Shahadi, shout out to Jennifer Shahadi, one of the best American women chess players ever, hits me up and she's like, yo, I'm sitting with the director of the World Chess Hall of Fame and we want to know if you'd be interested in curating an exhibit on hip hop and chess.
Wow.
I was like, yes, I would. So that's in St. Louis. So I'm going back and forth consulting the World Chess Hall of Fame for about a year and a half. It drops on the opening day. It was called, it was, what was that thing called? World Chess Hall of Fame. What was it called?
Something Kings, right?
Living Like Kings. You are right.
I got you.
Living Like Kings, the unexpected collision between hip hop and chess. Opening day, there are lines around the block.
That's awesome.
People can't get in. Like, if you look at the Twitter feeds from that time, people are like, I have never stood in a line to get in the World Chess Hall of Fame, and I can't get in right now. Me and RZA are there. We broke the opening day attendance for the World Chess Hall of Fame was held by Bobby Fischer until my exhibit.
Wow.
We broke Bobby Fischer's exhibit. And Bobby Fischer's exhibit was a floor above ours. And I remember like you can hear like a Tribe Called Quest just bumping through the floor. And I'm upstairs looking at Bobby Fischer's chairs, chess pieces, books, algebraic notation. And like, I didn't cry, but I almost did. Because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And so we were doing stuff in the juvenile hall out there as well. Riz is just an amazing human being. He's really a compassionate human being, and because he came from rough situations, he was always willing to come help do stuff at the juvies, and we talked to young incarcerated boys and girls all the time, and we played chess with them and stuff like that. And at the time that the World Chess Hall of Fame opened up, that was when Mike Brown got killed. So Mike Brown gets killed right before, and they almost didn't let the event happen because they thought that people were going to riot at the World Chess Hall of Fame, start breaking stuff. And I was like, look, if I'm being honest, I don't know why y'all are worried, because the riots are happening because the humanity and intelligence of black children is not being honored. And in that city at this time, the one place where the intelligence is being honored is at your facility. Nothing's going to happen. And so they believed me, and nothing happened. It was the second biggest show that they ever had in the World Chess Hall of Fame. And while I was there, I called a friend I knew who was at the Oakland Museum, and I was like, hey man, I'm killing it right now in St. Louis. We should do something at Oakland, because the World Chess Hall of Fame is a nice place, and they do amazing stuff. But the reality is, it's not that big. As far as museums go, you know what I mean? As far as museums go. So the guy was like, his name was Renee. Renee was like, yeah, I think I'm into it. Let's talk, blah, blah, blah. I got back. I pitch it to him. He's like, no, I'm not really interested. I was like, damn. But then I was like, who cares, fool? You just broke Bobby Fischer's record. You got options. So I called museums in Los Angeles, Philly, New York. No one calls me back. No one emails me back. Not one singular response. No one even said, yeah, your idea sucks. Please stop sending this shit, would you? Like, nothing. Nothing tells you how much something sucks than no response at all. This goes on for 18 months, I think. It went on for a while. So now I'm like, what are you going to do? And I was like, you should call Renee again. So this is where the ego comes in. He already told you no a long time ago. Are you going to call this man back and try to pitch this again? And the answer is yes. Call him up. Go back to the Easy E days, right? I'm like, yo. He's like, hello? I'm like, Renee, what's up, man? He's like, what's up? I said, listen, I know that I pitched this idea to you about hip hop and chess, and I know you rejected it. But I'm going to pitch it to you again right now. I need you to listen to me, and here's why. And he goes, can I just stop you for a second? And I was like, yeah. He goes, one of our board members noted that we've never done a hip hop show before. I went back and looked at your proposal. It's pretty cool. You still interested? Yes, I am. So now I'm doing something with the Oakland Museum, and that was called Respect, Hip Hop Style and Wisdom. It was me, Mike Realm, and the former director of the World Chess Hall of Fame, who was no longer the director. She teamed up with us, with me and Mike Realm, to do Respect, and we killed it. Wow. It was gigantic. There was like multiple screens. We had chessboards. We had a lowrider car in the thing. All these tributes to Bruce Lee, Wu-Tang Clan, everything, and 100,000 people, I think, came in 6 months. It was out of control.
Man, it's just it's so cool, kind of, because I've been listening to some of your stuff over the last couple of days, and I was so interested to talk to you about this connection between hip hop and chess. Why do you think there is? You said that you sort of, through your love of hip hop, just started clocking that people were talking about chess a lot and took it from there. Why are they talking about chess a lot? What is it about chess? I guess
that's a great question.
But I guess the wider question is, why is chess everywhere?
That's a great question. So there's a book called The Immortal Game by Schenk is the last name. Shenk. Schenk is the last name. And one of the ways that he opens the book is explaining how many games have come and gone in the lifespan of humanity, right? Like all these games come and go, right? There's this game in Africa. Nobody plays it. There's this game in Ireland. Nobody plays it. But chess, chess is still here, right?
I mean, chess is this magical, mystical, ancient game that's played in every country in the world.
Yeah.
That everyone knows it's like the most distinguished, thinking, logical.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to invent a game that beats chess.
Ever.
I mean, like it's the most balanced, perfect game ever created. It's strange. It's almost like
such a beautiful exercise for the mind.
if you told me that an alien came down 10,000 years ago and gave chess to the Earth,
You would say, okay,
you go,
that
makes sense, right?
I believe this, right? You know what I'm saying?
If they came down and said, if they came down and said like, the aliens came and gave Monopoly to the Earth, you go, I'm not so sure about that, but chess?
No, it's
what
a
is it?
beautiful game. I think that specifically how chess and hip hop is, I can tell you for sure, it's clarity of understanding your options and survival. Okay? So when you're playing chess, you were playing chess, what's really happening? There is attack and defense. There is risk. There's risk assessment. There is sacrifice, right? And there is this moment where I have to make a move, or you have to make a move based on, is it what it looks like? Does it look like check or checkmate? Whoosh, checkmate. No, it's not. My bishop was in the corner. Boop. Thanks for the queen. No. Right? Or is it checkmate? Whoosh, damn, I didn't see that. Good game. It's over. Right? And you can replay it. And algebraic notation, which most of us don't even care about, and I can't really read that well, to be perfectly honest, right, allows you to replay the brilliance of other people who have been dead for years.
It's so
right. So we could. There was a game that Ubisoft had called Chess Master, and in it was this bank of old games that I think one of the games went back to the late Greek. Okay.
Wow.
So I was looking at dead people's games. We don't know their name. I don't even think on that Greek game that there's names attributed. It's just the notation was done. And I'm like, yo, I can look into the mind of Bobby Fischer. I can look into the mind, right? I can look into anybody's mind. Mcl Tall, unbelievably brilliant, right? So you can go ahead and look into people's minds. And like jiu-jitsu, like I said, like chess is jiu-jitsu for the mind and jiu-jitsu is chess for the body. It sounds cool, but it is absolutely true. If me and you roll right now, at some point, one of us will have made a mistake that they cannot come back from. And it's the same thing on the board. You can, he got a pawn. Knight, no big deal. I can't come back from that. The loss is too great. Checkmate. Or the loss is too great, but he can't checkmate me, but I am not going to win. And it's a stalemate. Okay? So chess is jiu-jitsu for the mind. Jiu-jitsu is chess for the body. And I think that physiologically on a primal level, just like intellectually on a primal level, these games drive part of our original core. That's what I believe. Right? And the music is the thread to both of them. Right? So these dudes are not trying to die on the street, blah, blah, blah. So it pops up in Wu-Tang. Right? Jay-Z's talking about being the best of the best of the best. He's talking about Bobby Fischer. Right? And so these things will always play out because people don't want to lose. They don't want to die on the street. People in the hood, I work in a juvenile hall right now with this group called Rhythmic Mind. And what they've learned, these guys are amazing Rhythmic Mind. And what they've discovered or taken light of, I don't think they discovered it, what they've taken note of is that when a person is rapping, like, you know, if they're in freestyle, like in a cypher, when a person's rapping off the dome, the part of the brain that is self-critical, it turns off. It turns off when someone's freestyling. So what they've done is they've come with these students to meet these students in juvenile hall who, you know, I mean, quite honestly, a lot of them are in for violent crimes, you know what I'm saying? But why? They're kids. They're 13, 14, 15 years old. So we talk about PTSD. We talk about trauma. We talk about rewriting your own narrative. and we talk about rap, and we have them write about these things, and then we do meditation and mindfulness and all this other stuff. It's unbelievable. Okay. And one of the last times I was in the juvie over in Oakland, one of the kids was like, blah, 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 something. Cause we played chess, and one of the dudes, Jonah and and Max, they were like, chess. And they looked at me and they were like, yeah, are you good? And they were like, is he good? They were like, he plays chess with the Wu-Tang Clan. Y'all don't want it with him. They were like, we'll kill you. You ain't good. I was like, why do you think chess is big in this juvenile hall? I brought it. You're playing chess because of me, but you don't know it. But we can play, you know what I'm saying? And there's like young and old play it. Mothers and daughters play it. Grandmas beat their grandchildren and vice versa. And that connects humanity. I think the flaw of the mainstream chess community, and I know some of y'all hate me and that's okay, is that they're so dogmatic about the algebraic notation and the King's Indian and all this other stuff. And that's not what drives the culture of chess. The reason we beat Bobby Fischer, right? I didn't beat Bobby Fischer. Hip hop beat Bobby Fischer at the World Chess Hall of Fame, right? Hip hop and chess brought 100,000 people to the Oakland Museum. But I'll bet a sliver of those people know algebraic notation.
Yeah.
What they know is the camaraderie of two kids who go head to head with their brains and walk away with a handshake. That was dope. I respect that. Just like two people have a heavy roll on the mat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They were dominant, made a mistake, heel hook. I respect that. I was killing you, but then you got me, right? That stuff drives humanity. And it's the culture of jiu-jitsu that's transcended all the early crayon, right? It's the culture that when you start to shake it out, those humanity building pieces, that's what makes this art beautiful. Nobody in the hood's trying to be the world champion. Do they know who Magnus Carlsen is? No. Do they know, you know what I'm saying? Like all these different openings, the Sicilian Dragon and the Yugoslav defense. Some, mostly don't, right? But that's not what drives them. Being better human beings, thinking clear, not being a fool. That's what drives them, and that's what chess gives them. And when you blend that with a thing like jiu-jitsu, it becomes like supercharged. Supercharged.
Well, I was listening to your interview with the RZA, and he said something that resonated with me, which was, he said you can die on the board and then play again, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that connects with me because that's what we do on the mat, right? When for me, the greatest submission, the truest checkmate is, I think, like a footlock, an armbar, a shoulder lock. That's a resignation.
Yeah.
But a choke is a checkmate.
Unquestionable.
That's game over.
We don't want
you die, right? Because you see that the arm bars come on, you don't die. That's not checkmate, but you resign because you know that you're done.
That's a great perspective.
But a choke, that's a checkmate. And one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu is that we get to play killing each other.
Oh, we do.
I kill you, you kill me, I kill you, we shake hands, we go do it with someone else.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I was like, man, that's like something that in jiu-jitsu. It's more obvious in jiu-jitsu, but then it's there in chess again, where you get to have like an entire life cycle can exist on the board, or an entire life cycle you slap hands, you're just born, and then you grip up and you're finding your way, and you're getting your foot in, and then you start to feel confident, you're starting to grow up, and then you get the kill, and then you start again.
No, absolutely, man. And there's something again, that speaks, I think, to the primal core of who we are. Like once that spark hits, I know we just talked about like people quitting between like blue and purple and stuff, but like for those that it truly strikes, when that lightning strikes that primal core on the mat or on the board, you can almost never put it out. It's very hard to put it out. And that's one of the things that's beautiful, man. I mean, like, I just did my first seminar at Gracie Baja Roundhay Leeds. Shout out to Professor Mike, and shout out to T, shout out to, Professor Khalil, and shout out to Professor Lewis. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a great time up there. It was a benefit for the Atlantic Grappler. I did an iron hook closed guard seminar, advanced closed guard for the hospital in Leeds. My seminar raised a little over $2,000, right?
Wow.
This is awesome for me. I'm happy, right? The idea that when I walked in the Half Gracie's, like, my name's Adisa with these bell-bottom judo things, and that turns into me being here, right? Helping kids I'll never meet with jiu-jitsu, bro. Like, if I talk about it too much, I'll cry.
Yeah.
Because that's a beautiful thing, right? I believe in this thing called fight philanthropy. This idea that, you know, again, me, knowing I'm not going to be a world champion, knowing I'm not going to be a UFC fighter, whatever, what can I do with my art that helps the people, right? What can I do with my art that helps the people? The way I came up with this concept of fight philanthropy was there were really bad, I think, earthquakes, or was it like the Haitian, I think there was typhoons or something. And it was Sergio Silva hooked up with Gumby and me and a bunch of other people. We started doing these things where dudes from different schools would come, right? So you pay $50. Here's Kurt Osiander, Sergio Silva, Gumby, Danny Procopos, blah, 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 blah. And we're all going to show stuff and drill it and run it and raise money. We're going to give it to this cause. That is one of the biggest bridges between the schools that the Bay Area ever had. It was one of the biggest bridges between the schools. And I can show you footage, and I'll send you a clip, and you'll see Half Gracie, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, blah, blah, all under for what? For fight philanthropy. I believe that is what, not just jiu-jitsu, but any martial art can and should aspire to do for the community. Because how many people can you really knock out? How many people can you slam? How many people can you choke? After a certain point, what does it mean if other people aren't being helped?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And do you think, you know, obviously going back to the chess and the hip hop, when you first say it, you go, huh? And then you think about it and you go, yeah, it makes sense, right? It just does. And then the same with jiu-jitsu and chess. Yeah. So my question, because you've got to have pondered this and you know what's coming, is there a connection between jiu-jitsu and hip hop?
Yes. There is, and it all. So here's the deal: these things existed in hip hop before the Wu-Tang Clan, but the Wu-Tang Clan perfected their connection.
Chess, martial arts,
and hip hop. Okay, so you know, there's an old school hip hop album. I think it's on Tila Rock's album, and there's a guy named Greg Nice. He was a beatbox, and on that song, he's beatboxing, but there's this weird comical skit where it's supposed to be like Tony Montana from Scarface, like coming across like a kung fu master. And so he's like, right? And there's like, he's like beatboxing, but fighting and all this other stuff. Like Bruce Lee is one of the biggest icons in hip hop, right? Before Wu-Tang, already an icon, right? So
why do you think that is?
Oh, I can tell you quite honestly. So, in the 60s and 70s, because they were such a racially charged time, and black Americans, right, through the slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, Jim Crow, and all that stuff, all of, you know, when you're African American, like, until these new DNA tests, you didn't really know where you were from. And so what that also meant is that the warrior traditions from Africa had been wiped out. And so when Bruce Lee comes, there's a movie... the hardcore fans are going to hate me. I think it's Fist of Fury. He walks into a park and he's stopped by a security person and he points at the sign and it says no Chinese and no dogs. And so Bruce goes off, knocks people out, takes the sign, throws it up in the air and kicks it, shatters it. Okay. Well, that's Jim Crow for black people. We know what that's like. My dad grew up under that. My mom grew up. That's not ancient history. Okay. So we know what that kind of racial oppression feels like. You know, if you Google like old school signs, you'll see no dogs, no Jews, no blacks, whatever, you know, all kind of stuff. Okay. So that civil rights era, especially, you know, you've got Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, they were using, and the ones that had been to the military that went overseas and maybe trained some judo, maybe did some Kyokushin, right? They come back and they're bringing it to the hood, not just for like black liberation, but just safety in the hood. Every hood has some guy who walked around in karate shoes and a Bruce Lee shirt, you know what I'm saying, with nunchucks for no reason, right? We all know this person. He's in every hood. And so that relationship hip hop comes out of the death of the civil rights movement. So you have the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, it all dies. And out of those smoldering ashes rises hip hop. So, of course, when Public Enemy comes out, what do they have? Security of the First World, the S1Ws. These are these dudes that march around hardcore. They were out of the Nation of Islam. Every black dude from my generation prayed they could be an S1W. They didn't even know what that meant. I just know these fools can fight and nobody messes with them. I want to be down. You know what I mean? Professor Griff, James Baum, all these dudes, they were tough. You wanted to be like them. You wanted to be like Public Enemy, right? And they were the tough dudes that dealt with martial arts and hip hop before Wu-Tang. So there were all these threads about martial arts in hip hop, especially the DJ element and the dance element. There's a book by a guy named Joe Schloss called Foundation. Shout out to Joe Schloss. He's my G. But he actually has a whole chapter that deals with the impact of martial arts on hip hop dance, how B-boys did different things, and even the psychology, right, of how there was a movie, it was a short-lived series on, I think, Netflix. It was called The Get Down. And in it, Grandmaster Flash is kind of like he's kind of like a sensei. Like he says at one point, he's like, everybody sit down for 30 minutes of Zazen before he shows them DJ scratch stuff. So there's this idea that in the old days, like today, you can go on YouTube, learn a dance, and now you're a B-boy. In the old days, it was not like that. Lineage was involved. Who taught you? I was taught by the Rocksteady crew. Under who? Under Pop Master Fable. So now I know how you dance, because Pop Master Fable dances like this. However, from the West Coast, well, who did you learn under? I come under Don Campbell. Okay, right? Well, he dances like this. And so that lineage is involved,
Just like in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, just like in jiu-jitsu. And it's always been my belief that a lot of the early hierarchy and structure of hip-hop was a ripple effect of these kung fu films. You know what I mean? Respecting your elders. I was here before you. I will teach you how this move is done. And I will tell you verbally, like it's not a written thing. I will tell you, Cornbread was the first guy to write his name on the wall in Philly. And I studied with Cornbread. And so now you are the son of Cornbread. You see what I'm saying? And these kinds of things. And so the martial arts have a massive impact on hip-hop. In fact, if I'm correct, I believe that Jeff Chang, who wrote Can't Stop, Won't Stop, which is one of the biggest hip-hop history books with Davey D. He's doing a book on Bruce Lee's life, and I will be shocked if there's not a huge section about how Bruce Lee impacted hip-hop and the Kung Fu films impacted hip-hop unintentionally.
Wow. And do you think that there's something about modern technology and the internet and social media that's going to kill some of that purity of lineage, and that you have to learn from an individual? I mean, kids these days aren't learning from people, right? They're not learning in person anyway. They're learning.
Yeah, I mean, weird. That's a dope, deep question, bro.
I mean, even the last couple of years, kids literally aren't learning in person.
In the echo of the pandemic, right?
They're learning on Zoom, right? But at least that's live. Now, if you want to learn something, like you said, and it's the same with jiu-jitsu, which is the difference with jiu-jitsu is that it really, even though, it's been around for a long time, it only left Brazil 30, 40 years ago. And really has started getting big in the last 20 years, or the last 10 years.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu is interesting because jiu-jitsu was born kind of and started to expand itself. It's still very much in its infancy in the age of social media.
Yeah.
So YouTube videos and VHSs and DVDs are ingrained in the jiu-jitsu culture. Whereas karate, judo, chess, and then hip-hop, because hip-hop was just before, around 70s, 80s, 90s. They were around long before. So there was this weird thing where judo's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and you have to learn it in person. Well, now you just download the instructional from BJJ Fanatics or whatever, right?
Totally.
Not saying that's a
no. I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
But is that taken away? Even though it's a trade off, right? With technology, we're given the ability to learn from John Danaher via instructional. Right. But then we take away the purity of having to go and, imagine if jiu-jitsu was around, Brazilian jiu-jitsu with the characters that there are now, 2,000 years ago.
Oh,
you
my
know,
gosh.
or 1,000 years ago,
Right.
and you had to travel to go and train with
I heard there's a man
Grandmaster.
named Danaher.
Yeah,
I'm going
Grandmaster
to see his
Danaher.
style.
You know, and at the end he awards you a knife. You know, when you've completed your training. You know,
No, it's deep. I think, and it's weird, right? Because I think intentions change. So what I mean is, like, you know, when Mark Lehman was doing his Takazo VHS tapes, and OnTheMat.com is doing, you know, 101 submissions, volume 1, volume 2, you know, dengue fever. These were all like, if you had these things, they were like, you were in the culture. Like, hey, you want to see dengue fever? Check this out. OCM, bro. New DVD, right? And the way that those worked was, you would see, like I said, you would see the jiu-jitsu move like a minute before the sub. They played in slow motion, and then you could switch audio between the music, or you could listen to Gumby and Scotty explain everything that just happened. Wow. Now, this is a tool for practitioners. It is entertaining because there's music, but this is a tool for practitioners, okay? That didn't rule out. Nobody said, well, because I have this DVD, I'm not going to go to House today. No, it was like, because I got this DVD, I am absolutely going to House, and I'm going to ask him, does this technique work? Does it suck? Is it good? Whatever, and he's going to break it down. With the advent of YouTube, it's made it so that people who lived in areas that didn't have jiu-jitsu could kind of organically create their own spaces, and everything's kind of changed. I think that, you know, the advent of technology has made it ultimately better for hip-hop, chess, and martial arts, but with pitfalls, you know, And so it's like, you know, I was at class the other day showing a foot lock, a straight ankle lock, a couple of weeks ago, and at Half Gracie's, and somebody was like, oh, well, you know, what if I defend it? And I was like, okay, we'll try and defend it. And then it worked. You know, I did it because I had done it a lot. So I knew it was going to work. But I like that he thought, because of what he saw on video, that he could defend it, because we need that exchange. You know what I mean? There are other times, and this is what I was going to mention. This is why I mentioned Denny early on, because what Denny will do at his school is on Saturdays, he does Q&A jiu-jitsu. Okay. Now, ironically, in chess, my favorite chess book, because I'm not good at reading algebraic notation, is called Chess the Q&A Way by, who's Josh Waitzkin's coach, Bruce Pandolfini. So the guy will be like, hey, Bruce, I'm not doing well with knights, blah, blah. Now, rather than go, you know, knight to c5, then c4, queen takes, he explains more conceptually how the knights are supposed to work, and and you get it through. So Denny does the same thing. Denny will be like, everybody in here gets to ask me a question about what they're having a problem with. So what about the closed guard? I can't break posture. Okay, let's talk about breaking posture. Next person, single leg X guard, not working, you know, and he'll go. So I do that too. And what you really realize as an instructor isn't just what you're good at. They pull out the jiu-jitsu you forgot.
Yeah.
What about that pass you used to do as purple belt? It still works. Why did you stop using it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Well, how do I get out when he's doing the Americana from here? How come I can't? Well, I take my hand like this, go into the armpit, right? Oh, okay. Like, you need those exchanges. So it's like, to some degree, what a lot of the explosion of video is doing can, for some, cheapen the experience overall. But really, I think it only cheapens it for those that don't have the intention of actually learning. These videos are cheat sheets, but they're not the move. Yeah. I guarantee you, if I have, like, your guillotine is so beast, right? I just watched your guillotine video on YouTube. Before you leave, I'm going to have you guillotine me because I want to feel it.
Yeah.
So I know what it's going to feel like. Everybody who watched that video isn't going to know it like I'm going to know it tonight, because I have the blessing of being in the same room with you and feeling the experience of the technique being applied. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that the readiness and the availability, the abundance, I think, like, modern culture is, one of the issues of modern culture is abundance, right? Like, the reason that we're fat is because we've evolved to eat we're so rarely able to get food that when we get food, we eat all of it.
Yeah.
But now we can eat as much food as you want, 24
We're way
hours a
more
day.
sedentary at the same time, right?
But like we can eat as much as you want. You can eat 20 tubs of ice cream, and evolutionary, you're programmed to do that, but we can't. And we have an abundance of information, but then if you just absorb the information without processing it, it can do bad. Social media in excess is too bad for you, or doing this is too in excess is too bad for you. And we have an abundance of techniques. Yeah. But if you think that you can just watch a technique and then you've got that, that's wrong. You've got to take it, and then you've got to go, okay, now I've got to go practice it. Now I've got to go. If I'm not a high level guy, I have to go and talk to my instructor and say, hey, instructor, I saw this technique. How do I, what could go wrong? What are they not showing me?
Yeah, exactly. To your point, so there's a really good leg lock specialist named Mcl Fisher, and me and him were talking. I think it was this week. I wish I could pull it up from my phone right now. But what he said was something really powerful. He sent me these clips of him going with this guy in live rounds, right, super fight type things, right. And I was like, I said something about me thinking that the guy that Emil was in more danger than I thought. I was like, man, that looks pretty. And he was like, no. He was like, I understand like the micro nuances to such a point, like it might look to you that I'm in danger. He goes like, he's 99.9. He goes, but I know that 0.01. He goes, and that's why I win. And I was like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? Because you can't get that from video.
No.
You get that from sitting with someone, running it, having it done, doing it wrong, having people escape, having it done to you. And then you're like, I get it. Right. And so this is what like the pursuit of it really is for anything. And that's why, like I know for any given technique that I'm not good at, I know why. Because I haven't repped up. I haven't sat with someone. I haven't said, Gumby, I'm losing this every time. Why? And Gumby's going to be like, do it to me. Oh, here's why. There's no pressure. Your knees are not squeezing. Oh, now you need to squeeze here and then extend. Oh, now you see that? Okay, I get it. You're never going to get that from, this great database of 2,500 videos that you paid $1,000 for that you're never going to internalize because you're not sitting, not just with other people, you're not sitting with someone who actually has known this and done it deliberately for years.
Yeah, like 100%. You're not going to be good at chess by reading the book alone. You got to read the book and play the game.
Because what happens when you're playing that variant and then they do a variant to your variant? Oh, man, he just pushed that pawn forward. I thought he was supposed to move the knight. Nah, homie, different theme.
And the crazy thing about chess, and for me, obviously, the number of possible moves in chess is so massive. You've got literally the number of different combinations that you could make on a 8x8 board, which are in the
like by the third move, it's like
more stars than there are in the observable universe.
Yeah.
And then you think in jiu-jitsu, that's a closed system. There is a finite number of chess moves that can be done. In jiu-jitsu, there isn't. So there's an even bigger number. But it's crazy that people don't realize. It's the same with a pack of cards, right? The number of different possible combinations of 52 cards, it means that if you get a brand new pack out and you shuffle it well, it's very likely that you hold in your hand a sequence that has never, ever existed before.
Isn't that deep, man?
That's insane, right? But like, imagine the number of people playing cards, and people are going to go, there's no way that's true.
Right.
Because there's millions of people with a pack of cards in their hand right now. You're telling me that this is but then you realize the number, and I think it was, if you shuffle a deck of cards every second from the moment of the Big Bang to now, you still would have a different,
bonkers.
It like 52 factorial, 52 times 52 times. It's an inconceivably large number. And then the chessboard is the same. And people don't realize this when you watch someone break down a tournament match.
Yeah.
And they'll go, and at move 8, we have a brand new game. Never been done before, right?
Right.
Every single time. Every single time
they'll monkey wrench the whole game.
You're thinking because these are in computers. There's records, like you said, annotations. But how many online games have been played? And they go, and now we have a brand new game, never been played. Not in the books before.
Yeah.
every single time. It's just it's
deep,
insane,
man.
yeah.
And then there's also just like, like the algebraic notation is like being like in space or a vacuum. Like it's in black and white.
Yeah.
We see it, right? But when two human beings are across the board from each other, the energy between them, the eye contact, the body posture, the breathing, all of that is a factor. All of that is a factor. That's why Bobby Fischer used to work out so hard physically, because he wanted to be dominant. He wanted to shake his opponent's hand and almost crush it deliberately, because he wanted you to know, homie, I am here for all of this on every level. And it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu, right? How many times have I feigned to be more tired than I have been? How many times have I had someone in my close guard, acted like I didn't know what I was going to do so I could sit up sweep? You know what I'm saying? And like all this other stuff. And how many times has it looked like the triangle was about to finish me, but I actually have my knee in the middle and the posture's there, right? All of this stuff happens. And so, I was talking with my students and I said, ultimately, in many ways, jiu-jitsu is finite because we are finite. We've got wrists and elbows and shoulders and a neck and our eye, right? And so we have the way that our body functions. So those finishes, there's going to be probably a limit to the finishes, right? Because, the wrist isn't supposed to bend that way or whatever. I said, but the entries and the way you obscure those things, that's where we become infinite.
There's too many variables.
Right? We could just,
just a millimeter difference on a wrist, or like my forearm, you go with someone else and their forearm's a wrist an inch longer, and the
changes everything.
That's the thing that doesn't change with chess, obviously, which is the pieces are still the same.
It's always that square.
The start is always the same. That's the difference. In jiu-jitsu, it's not.
That's real.
In jiu-jitsu, the start is never the same.
That's real.
You and me rolled now, and then we roll tomorrow, but I slept better than you.
Right.
Or you ate half an hour ago because you haven't eaten, you
totally
it hasn't digested.
Or I just came out of meditation, so like I'm not shaking, right? All of that stuff. Do you meditate?
I wanted to talk to you about this. I want to get into, but people who have listened to most of the episodes will heard me about 20 times say that I want to get into meditation when I talk to various people. I tried it a little bit last year and I was getting into it. I mean, I did a little bit of waking up with Sam Harris, guided stuff, and then I started to try and get into unguided and realize how hard it is. But I enjoyed the challenge a little bit, and for a while, for a couple of weeks, every night before I slept, I'd do 5 or 10 minutes where I was just have nothing in your head. But I think it's one of those things where you need someone that you trust to go, this is how you should do, because there's so many ways to do it.
There is, yeah.
So when you say meditation, how do you do it?
So I have several ways of meditating. I started meditating as a white belt when I saw the movie Choke. I saw Hickson moving his stomach, and I was
so you've been doing meditation for a long time.
Well, kind of. So what happened is I started doing yoga, right? I started doing yoga, hatha yoga, super basic, just breathing and movements. Nothing, no hot box yoga like, Bikram and stuff like that. So then I ended up doing an article in the Yoga Journal where I interviewed the Shaolin monk Shi Yan Ming, who is RZA's kung fu teacher.
Wow.
And he said, when RZA's doing a rap and he makes a beat, he's creating meditation. And I just thought he was just talking some esoteric stuff because he was cool with RZA.
But RZA's got a meditation album out.
Now
right?
He's got a meditation album out.
I mean, maybe I'll hit that up tonight.
And I went to Camp Tazo, where me, RZA, and the Shaolin monk that I interviewed 20 years before all taught groups of people meditation, chess, and kung fu.
That's sick.
Unbelievable. Right before the pandemic shut everything down. This happened in Staten Island. It's called Camp Tazo. Look it up. If you put Camp Tazo to RZA, you'll see us there. So the thing is that in between that time, around 2009, I was a security guard at a school, and they had won a transcendental meditation grant where the TM people were teaching the students, the staff, and the faculty. So I started learning then, like real transcendental meditation. Before that, the meditation that I did was more Zenish, where I would just sit in silence after yoga. And that was just a natural thing I would want to do. Then once I got my meditation teacher, he told me, yoga's purpose was to prepare you for meditation. Yeah. And I was like, what?
Yeah, people were like, everyone thinks that yoga is about stretching, but yoga is about, the stretching is a tiny part of it, and the meditation is a big part.
Opening your body and relaxing you so you can begin to step into meditation. So I started stepping into meditation, and people may or may not believe this, but it's absolutely true. It's transcendental meditation that opened the door for everything I do, from the iron hook closed guard and the cloud scroll closed guard. All of that's from meditation. I did that as a purple belt. Okay. And the thing is that I would meditate, and I would literally, I'd be driving down the freeway, and I would get a flash in my brain of a submission. And I would think about the submission because I hadn't seen it before. And what happened is I have to peel the pictures back in my brain to find out how it started. That's how all of those techniques came up.
So wait, you're telling me that, so the meditation created a state of mind, so when you weren't meditating, ideas came to you?
Like on the freeway, I could be walking down the street, I could just bought a burrito, and it'd be like a black and white image. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like a black and white image of a submission that I have not seen before, has not been taught to me, has not been done to me.
And then do you meditate to try and get it?
Nope. I have to think backwards to find, how did this begin? And so that's how everything came to me. And then the proof of it for me is that I've never been able to add on to any of that stuff. I have the iron hook scroll movements, which are on a PDF sitting on the internet. I'll send it to you or whatever. I have the cloud scroll, which I made as a separate PDF, and nothing has ever came to me since. And every innovation of those moves has come from other people, not me. They'll be like, oh, you could do this from here. Oh yeah, you're right. But I don't teach, I encourage other people to do stuff because I don't have it. And so now I meditate, I do TM. I do, in Islam, there's what's called dhikr and zikr. They're Islamic meditations, right? I do those. And there's a guy named Paul Solomon who passed away. I never met him. I didn't know anything about him until about a year ago, but he did a talk on YouTube that's on YouTube called Self-Talk. And it's about how negative self-talk like corrodes the mind. And he has a mantra that he created to undo negative self-talk. And it goes, I will, I can, I do, I am. I will, I can, I do, I am. My friend Leo taught me about it. When I was out here for the last 6 months, he was like, yo, Paul Solomon, look up this dude. And once I learned that mantra, I started doing it. All kinds of stuff started changing for me. You know what I'm saying? And so like meditation absolutely works. And I think that in the space of jiu-jitsu, in a world that is so interculturally amazing, right? Like Black Muslim guy from America here in London with you, right? All this, right? Yeah. That meditation is what the art of jiu-jitsu needs now, because the problem that jiu-jitsu has always had from the minute I stepped through the door is that it's had no overriding philosophy, right? And we come from the West, where because of Bruce Lee, Kung Fu films, we always think, Cobra Kai, we think that stuff is supposed to come with a martial art. Now, technically, jiu-jitsu never had that.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Never tried to have it. To be frank,
that's right. Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why it actually worked as a martial art, right? Because
it was based purely in reality.
Yeah, we need to make sure this actually works, guys. We can't meditate over here. He's going to punch us, right? Like, so you see all the McDojo stuff, right? But the problem is, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so accurate and dangerous, without a philosophical framework, you can create bulls and mayhemic people that are bad, right? And so when you look at a lot of the bad things that happen in jiu-jitsu, the sexual assaults, the problems with instructors beating students up for real. Now, I know, I did kind of come from that era a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But it's not a good thing at this point. We don't need it. How you talked about the maturing of the art, right? And so what my belief is that meditation needs to be the new cornerstone of the next maturity of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because that way, without the dogma, we still have another channel to connect on, right? So it's not these principles from a sacred sensei on a mountain, maybe not. However, I will, I can, I do, I am, that centers me, we're good. You take, whether it's guided meditations or whatever. I'll tell you who I like, who's also, I think, from London. You ever heard of this guy named Mooji? Mooji?
No.
The most amazing guided meditation.
Okay.
You want to go to like the next interstellar thing?
Yeah.
Mooji.
Okay, I'm going to get all this.
Yeah.
I mean, you've referenced about 20 things. I need to get that chess book, because I can't read annotations.
The Immortal Game.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, man. Like, I am so honored, man. I was just watching you and AJ, and I was listening to other shows of yours.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you
stuff
on,
like
man,
this.
yeah.
I hate that I got to go back to America right now, but as soon as I get back, my boy, we're hooking up, we're hanging out, we're training, and anytime you come to the Bay,
I'll be out there for sure.
I'm gonna take you over to House. I'm gonna take you over to Heroes. I'm gonna take you to Denny. I'm gonna take you to all the homies, bro. Like you're welcome,
man. I appreciate it. And like when we hooked up straight away, and you said that you were in town for a little while, I thought I've got and it's a crazy time at the moment, beginning of the year, but I had to come and try and get a chat with you because
I have so much gratitude.
I just love it so much, man. If you got a few more minutes, we got to talk about chess grappling quickly.
For sure,
What brought us all together?
Yes, that's what brought us together.
So, obviously, I am looking to create a tournament format or a competition format that combines chess and grappling, and I think I've got the main. Have you thought about combining chess and grappling in a competition format before?
Yeah.
And how would you do it?
So here's the crazy thing. True story. So years ago, this guy was doing a documentary on chess boxing. Okay. He asked if he could interview me. I said yes. He comes, he interviews me, and he introduces me to another guy whose name I'm forgetting right now. From my conversations with that guy, and this guy was a big dude. He played chess. He actually won one of the... No, he didn't. He lost at one of the HHCF events. And he was kind of an odd duck, but he was a nice guy. And he kind of talked about it first, but he didn't really grapple. He liked Jiu Jitsu, but he wasn't like a grappling type of person. So he was like, man, what if we could put it together like that? So I put together this idea of chess and grappling that was kind of like by EBI rules. It would be sub only, right? And then you would have like the game, and it would be like 5 minutes on, 5 minutes in each thing, right? And you would get points for subs.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I mean, I understand if
Break it down.
anyone talking about format and stuff, if you're planning on doing something, you don't want to give it away, but if you don't mind...
No, I'll share all of it. I don't care. I mean, I'll look for the document and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, so
for real.
So because I'll tell you exactly what I'm planning to do as well. So specifically, if you've thought that deep into it, what would the format be? So how many rounds? Like, how's it working?
Originally, the way that I had it, and I have to go pull up the document and go look for it, but I believe it was 3 rounds.
So 3 rounds of chess, 3 rounds of grappling?
Yeah, but I also think that that originally I think we had talked about 5-minute rounds, but I taken them down to 3 just to keep the speed going.
Yeah.
Right?
So 3 on the mat and on the chessboard.
Yep. So that was the deal.
So every time you get a sub, it counts as a point?
Yeah, you would get points for that. And then I have to go pull up the document. But this is why I was juiced when I saw your post. Because I was like, I have way too many email accounts that but I believe I can find it. Because me and Gumby, I had worked on it, and I got it to the point where I was like, Gumby, I want to come by, bring some boards, and we're going to run it. He's like, cool. And I'd broken it all down, but then life happens. I'm married. I got kids, crazy. Then I almost die. Then I get divorced. Then I'm like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Then I dive back into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, finally get my black after decades of walking the earth. And so when I saw your post, I was so juiced.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would love to help you cultivate this in any way that I can.
I'll tell you what I had in mind. So the chess boxing was... I think it's 3-minute rounds, and they do a round of chess, boxing, chess, boxing, chess, boxing. I think it's 6 rounds of each, or 5 rounds of boxing, 6 rounds of chess, something like that. You either win from a knockout, a checkmate, running out of time, or maybe you can win a decision on the. I don't know exactly, but those are the main ways. So I was thinking that's simple. I thought it was more complex than that. That's simple. So I was thinking similar thing. Probably 4-minute rounds, not 3. 3 is probably a little bit too
much pressure, huh? Especially
three is too short.
High level, right? Because nobody's going to be like these chess dudes who are actually thugs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
3 minutes is.
We're all going to be casuals on the chessboard side.
3 minutes of grappling is too little. So 4-minute rounds. It will be 4 rounds of grappling, 5 rounds of chess. The chess is one game, right? So it continues. There's a chess clock, 10-minute chess clock.
Okay.
And it continues the entire time. So either the first way I was thinking, first iteration, super simple. You could, if any sub at any time ends the game. That's it.
Okay.
That's dumb.
That's lit.
No, I mean that's it. You tap some. It starts with chess, so you're always going to play some chess. If you get a checkmate in 3 moves in the first 4 minutes, done. Game over.
Okay.
It's done.
Okay.
It's done. It's final. If you're playing your chess game and then you roll and you get a sub in the first 5 seconds, it's game over. Sub at any time, checkmate at any time, game's over. Otherwise, you're going to play all of the rounds, and
there's no points on the mat, right?
There's no points on the mat.
Only,
so
right?
yeah, then I was thinking, what happens if there's no sub and there's no checkmate? And then I was thinking, if you put the chess timer right, there will have to be someone will run out of time.
Yeah, whoever. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, whoever runs out of time,
so it's not an issue.
They're out, right?
And then I was thinking maybe 4 rounds of grappling. Maybe the last round is scored. So if it doesn't look like there's going to be a sub, maybe the last round is scored, and maybe I'll still do it. I don't know. But I was thinking
that's actually kind of dope.
But I wanted to the thing with chess boxing is there's no connection between the two, right? You box. And then the boxing's forgotten about, and you play chess.
Right.
There's no. There's one.
There isn't
two,
an actual
one,
integration.
Two. There's no integration. So, tell me what you think.
You got
about
a
this.
solution? Oh,
I think so.
Okay, talk to me.
There's 4 rounds of grappling, right?
Okay, I'm watching.
First round, start from standing.
Okay.
Second round is the side control round. Whoever's winning material on the board starts on top of side control. It's just the start position. Third round is the mount round. Whoever's winning material starts in mount. And then the fourth round, final round, is the back round. Whoever's starting with more material starts in that position. So it means, because you've got to imagine that you're going to have someone. I mean, I think it's a nice way.
That's hot.
Right?
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm all, oh my
So I
God.
think it'll be cool because you imagine, you're thinking about, you're going to do a sacrifice. You're going to do something as simple as a pawn sacrifice, or someone takes a piece early and you're going, well, shit. This guy's going to start on my back now. I've got to try and get some pieces back, right? So I think it just brings a different dynamic where you can where you're watching you're not watching 2 guys grapple, then 2 guys play chess. You're watching actually something where it's connected, where you go, okay, this is interesting. You imagine the commentators, this is interesting. He's given up his pawn. This is a sacrifice. He's going to get a material. He's going to go be down on material, but he's going to get a tempo advantage. He's going to get positional advantage.
Hey, you know what? That's super lit. I love that idea. That's gold. See, in my original thing, and I think the way that I had it set up was in the grappling rounds, you got points for that because you had several rounds. So you could still, like, I may tap you, you may tap me, but then, like, it's 3 to
I thought
to
about
2
that.
or something like that. But this is better.
I thought about that.
That idea is better.
But I thought, you know what? Subs are subs.
And
checkmate's a checkmate.
Yeah,
if you get a sub, it's got to be
truly
it's
final,
done.
right?
It's done.
We don't have questions.
Exactly, because when you're in a tournament and there's something fun about this guy just had a 10-minute, EBI. This guy just had a 10-minute match with a 10-minute overtime, and this guy just got a 2-minute sub, and they got to go together. Right?
Yeah, that's going to be a factor.
It's stuff that plays into it. So.
I love it.
So that's what I'm thinking.
Do you envision this gi or no gi, or does it matter?
Both.
Because I envision both.
So originally I was thinking maybe first round's gi, second round's.
Yeah.
So one, I like this idea of material advantage on the board affects the jiu-jitsu somehow.
That is the best thing, bro.
Yeah, and
that idea is gold.
And like with anything, you've got to try it out. I think with a lot of tournaments, they come up with an idea. It sounds great on paper, but then they can become too attached to the idea.
Well, yeah.
And what that means is that they run the event and the system is gamed. Maybe not the first event, second event happened with EBI. The early EBIs were so good.
Yeah.
And then people go, wait a minute, I'm just going to not do anything for 10 minutes and then I'm going to smash on the spider web.
That happened in Abu Dhabi in the beginning. Remember where they're like, there's no points for the first 3 rounds.
So we're not going to do anything. And then we're going to
super whatevs and then
hit a takedown on 4 minutes, 1 second. So any way you do it, you can game the system. And I don't think there are any ways. There are no rule sets that can't be gamed, but you can make adjustments to make it harder. So maybe I come up with this great idea, and then I have people. You have people who go, okay, well, I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to win that way, and it makes everything boring. Change it. So I'm open to changing stuff, but I'm planning in the next month or 2 to run a chess grappling open mat.
Dog.
Get people. We're going to play some games. We're going to do some mock.
I'm already
competition
sad
matches.
because, like, if it happens and I'm not there, like, I will be back on the West Coast crying.
I mean, next time you're over, we'll have to do something,
my
sort it
God.
out, and
oh my God.
Yeah.
You know who would love this? Jizza from Wu-Tang. Jizza loves jiu-jitsu.
Really?
Like, immensely.
Does he
doesn't do it.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't do it, but he loves it. Like when he was so Jizza came to town like 3 weeks ago. Me and Gumby went because you know, we're doing all these HHCF events like Jizza and Gumby didn't kick it, but they were around each other and, you know, they knew each other. So like, hey, what's up? You know, I just finally got my black and we were all hanging out. And he was like, yo, man, he goes, when my kids was young, he goes, I had all the instructionals. He was explaining how he had all his keys, like the mount, half guard, like he was breaking it all down. And I was super impressed by that because I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
I really didn't know that. You know what I mean? And he loves chess like immensely. You know what I'm saying? So like, man, let me holler at Jizza, bro. Let's figure something out, bro.
Yeah,
like, this
awesome.
could be super
I mean,
lit.
I'd love if it works. I want to try it out. I'd love to come over to stateside, to the Bay
Gumby
Area.
was loving the idea too. Now again, I got to go find this document because basically what happened is the guy who I'm saying was like an odd guy, like we kind of fell out under weird circumstances, but he didn't know enough to make the jiu-jitsu chess thing work. So I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to work on it and figure it out. And then,
well, no one's done it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm
You know
sure
what I mean?
loads of people have thought about
yeah,
it.
but
no
no,
one's done it, yeah.
your idea is pretty sick, bro.
Well, we got to test it and find out and see if it works. But I'm glad I got the seal of approval for the bishop himself.
No question.
Awesome.
No question. Yo, thank you so much.
Dude.
I have to have you on my podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime.
Because I got to have you on Bishop Chronicles because, so like, basically, it was a hip hop podcast that I scrapped a few months ago. Like I've done hip hop. Bishop Chronicles has been a hip hop podcast for years, but about 4 months ago, I scrapped it to focus on stoicism and the art of not quitting. Like that's what. So that's called. You know, Bishop Chronicles is a podcast, is a Stoic podcast about Stoic philosophy and the art of not quitting. Right. That's because we're living in crazy times. Right. And no matter who I'm talking to, Muslim, black, white, whatever. Right. No matter what we talk about, at some point, the discussion is, well, how are you getting through these days? Right. And it's about how are we surviving? So that's what this is about. Because I turned to Stoic philosophy and like Sufism and stuff to kind of like make my way in these crazy times, especially after my divorce. So I haven't done any interviews, but I'm starting I'm going to have an interview process and I'll tell you about that off.
Yeah.
But the idea is one that I think you'll dig. And so basically every person who comes on the show is asked one question. And then that's the show.
Sweet.
So I want you to be on the show.
100%. Look, genuinely, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. You know, I do every single one of my episodes are in person. It's the only way that I record them. So it does, you know, the advantages of that, there's trade-offs for everything. The advantage is that the audio quality is good. You get to sit down, you know, you meet everyone and you have a true human connection. The disadvantage is that it's very difficult to do. So I can't put out content consistently because, especially at the moment, I have to travel. So when someone rolls through from America and you're in town and, you know, rain or not, I'm going to try and get here so I can sit down and have the chat. But honestly, I'm super into all of the stuff that you're putting out, so it would be, you know, anything that you do, I'd love to be a part of because it's super dope.
Yeah, no, and like, you know, hopefully I got to do some applications and whatnot, but you know, if I'm willing, if I'm able, God willing to settle in the UK, like we'll be doing way more stuff.
Oh, awesome, man. That'd be wicked. Dude, thank you so much.
Yes, brother. Thank
awesome,
you.
Brother.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll catch you soon and very safe travels to
absolutely. You. Hey, and follow your boy on Instagram at Bishop Chronicles, and you know, you'll see more of this type of stuff happening.
I'm going to put all of your information in and I'll try anyway. Don't worry about it. I got you, brother.
Much love.
That is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to find out more about Adisa and all the stuff that he does, if you want to follow him, then you can check him out on Instagram. His handle is at Bishop Chronicles. Also, go check out his podcast. It is called Bishop Chronicles, and that is on Spotify and iTunes, and I'm sure all the other main podcast directories. If you want to follow myself, as usual, I mean, by this point, If you're not already, I don't know what's happening. But I guess if this is your first episode that you're listening to, then please go ahead and feel free to follow me. My Instagram is at raspberry_ape. You can also follow specifically an Instagram just for this podcast, which is at raspberry_ape podcast. If you enjoy this episode, or indeed you enjoy this podcast in general, then feel free also to go ahead and leave a review on iTunes. And yes, what else? YouTube channel is youtube.com/raspberryape, where you can go and watch any of my podcast episodes or some other things that I've got on there, or check out my website, which is raspberryape.com. And of course, if you want to email me, then you can email me at podcast@raspberryape.com. That's it. I will catch you next time. Take it easy.